They said the hero merely watched from the sidelines. His healing magic was no longer needed, since they had become stronger and no one could harm them anymore. The man added that they would not like a stranger from the slums nearby. The hero told the man to wait, saying they were partners. Ashton laughed, surprised that Zeno still did not grasp the point. I realized from the start that I didn't belong here. He thought about the social classes in that country, the royal family, the aristocrats, the townspeople, and the poor. Having suffered many humiliations, he settled for a modest home and was glad to have even that. Because Baston had pulled him out of the thickets, he was glad to help. He thought that with no chance to study magic elsewhere, he had learned it on his own, and despite all hardships, always gave it his all. He declared it was over, that Zeno was no longer with him, and tossed a coin to the ground. The hero asked what that meant. Zenos realized this was probably the first time he had seen a gold coin that a poor man like him could never earn in his life. He asked the hero if he had learned everything and was told the hero could not believe there was such a scoundrel on their team, then warned him not to tell anyone. The team didn't realize who it owed its abilities to. Zeno himself has not yet realized how this split will affect his future. About what will happen now. He said that even if he stays an adventurer, he remains poor and cannot join the guild. He heard a sudden cry. Turning to the others, he demanded why they had shot at her and called them fools. He said angrily that he had planned to profit from it. The others began to apologize. People said she always tried to escape. Zeno saw a girl on the road with an arrow in her back. The boys insisted she would die anyway. Another shouted that he could not believe he had shot at the elf girl. Geo turned back to them. He asked if they had hit the child. The boy interrupted the conversation. He said she was his slave. The man shouted that the hero should leave. Zeno held out a gold coin and asked if that would be enough. A boy shouted that he was a fool, but another ordered him to be quiet. Turning to the girl, she asks how she feels. The girl lifts her head slightly. She grabbed the arrow and wrenched it free in one quick motion. He put his hand on the girl's back and began to heal her. Daryl asked if she was alive. The hero reassured her, saying he would definitely help. Veja concluded it was pointless. The elf was impressed. She stood up and looked around, surprised. The elven woman said happily that her back no longer hurt, and the bleeding had stopped. And the hero explained he was a healer who had pulled out the arrow and healed the wound. And she noticed the wound was gone, and admitted she had thought she would die. Some said she was overstating the scratch's importance. Shouting, she asked whether he was joking about it. The girl hesitated before answering. Zero asked what happened. She looked down. She looked into the hero's eyes and thanked him. Looking at her, he realized how long it had been since anyone had thanked him for his care. Training had cost him sweat and blood, but the teen did not believe him because the magic could not be seen. There was no time to explain. The hero thought they treated him horribly. He asked the girl whether those men were slave traders. She confirmed they were and said they had captured her yesterday. She asked about the money. He clarified if she meant the gold coins he had given them. Reassuring her, he said those coins had come to him for free. Noting that ending up in the hands of human traffickers is a terrible thing, he asked where Lily lived and offered to take her home. Carol bowed her head and admitted she had no home. Zeno realized the girl reminded him of his younger self. He could not understand why the elven child was forced to live on the streets. He told Lily they were having a problem at that time. They locked eyes. The hero suggested they grab a bite first. At the venue, Lily looked around in surprise and was impressed by what she saw. Lily asked Zeno if he wanted anything to eat. Zeno said he wasn't hungry and would prefer water. Holding his hand, the man asked someone to bring him water. The hero noticed burns and gunshot wounds. Asked whether it was a magic pistol. The man said he had been taken by surprise. His arm was now useless, and his only wish was for the pain to stop. Renos told the man not to exaggerate, saying the wound was small and would heal quickly. The hero touched the man's wounded arm and applied healing. The man looked at his arm in surprise, as it now looked completely healthy. Cheerfully stepping in, he said Zeno was a true master of healing. She pointed out that it was supposed to be that way, and he agreed. He will treat people. He admitted that poverty prevents him from getting a license or opening his own practice, so he will be forced to provide medical care illegally. She cheerfully promised she would help. The hero was genuinely surprised. The hero announced he would be her mentor and she must follow him. Zeno agreed, saying it was temporary until they found her shelter. The girl responded with a joyful cry. He realized he would finally live as he wanted, doing what he does best and being rewarded for it. This made him decide that if he could bring someone happiness, his life would not be wasted. There weren't even any people here. One of them replied that he really wanted to hear it. He said an epidemic once swept this place and left the city empty, and that without a license, they cannot work in densely populated cities. Looking at one of the houses, he suggested going inside. Pearl claimed to be the highest demon in the undead hierarchy and looked like an ordinary person but could kill with a single touch. The girl called for light, and a glowing sphere appeared in her hands. The hero was amazed. Lily suddenly noticed something unusual. A loud noise rang out. They all appeared before her, floating in the air. Lily shouted for them to lift it here. He seemed to know someone had been here already. The building looked the neatest in the whole neighborhood. A girl called to him, urging him to wake up. Ray caught the scent of life. Approaching the hero, she grabbed his head and asked him to give her his life. Lily called out to him, directed healing at a ghost. The blow hit the girl's stomach, and she was thrown backward. She asked whether it was burning. He replied that if it was, he'd already destroyed at least 100 like this one in the underground labyrinth. Lily asked again, surprised. The hero apologized to the ghost, said they were interested in the building, promised to try not to disturb its peace, and asked the ghost to share the place with them. They asked him what he did, and he started again to talk about his life. Zeno and Snoy used the healing, which greatly frightened the ghost. She apologized and admitted she had attacked him personally. His reply was that she should not take it personally. She repeated that she was not going to forgive him and declared he was the first to dare offend Camilla, the Queen of Ghosts. Turning to Xenos and glancing at the ghosts, he said he finally wanted to talk things over calmly. Ghosts closed in on the heroes from all sides. He made a magic circle that protected him and Lily. The powerful healing caused all the ghosts to disappear. Stunned, Lily looked at the hero and asked who he really was. He said he was a modest underground doctor. Ray asked again in surprise. The man apologized and added that they would only need an office in the bedroom. He was embarrassed. It was obvious to the naked eye. She said he could use the first floor, but she would keep the second. Tot thanked her for the help and expressed his gratitude. A few days passed. The lily symbol stayed on the table. He told Xenos she was bored, and Xenos said he could quickly sort it out by renting a house, repairing a room, and outfitting it to look like an office. Noting that several days had passed with no customers, she asked if she should go outside to attract someone, but the hero warned that would draw the royal police, and Lily added that then no one would come to them. Lou knew there was no need to worry and told her someone would certainly arrive soon. She looked closely at the boy and greeted him warmly. The same lizard man stood before them. The girl said she knew him. He said his hand was burned by a magic pistol and that he was not an ordinary civilian, adding that people like him face circumstances that prevent them from going to regular medical clinics. She approached him and asked him to examine her. The girl sat in the chair across from him. She told him she had a gunshot wound and he could see the damage. Her hand was in terrible condition. She asked if he could treat her, and he said that if the wound was recent, the bullet could be removed and it would heal. But she noted that 3 days had already passed. He warned that her hand was in danger and it would be better to amputate it before the poison spread through her body. The girl said she understood and asked how much it would cost. The boys exclaimed in surprise. The men were stunned and questioned Zeno's sanity, saying he was out of his mind to demand $1 million just to cut off her hand. The nurse asked Sun to calm down. Noting the sum was very large, he asked if the hero knew about Sophia from Storms. The robot pressed a knife to the hero's throat. She said she'd never heard of it before, and the hero, surprised, asked if she was joking and if other healers could do the same. He lay on the bed. Zeno said they would start. Using magic, he conjured a scalpel in his hand. Lily watched the operation as Sophia's arm was amputated. He said he could restore her. Raising his hands, he added that the protective magic had stopped the bleeding. Each time regeneration magic is used, wounds heal faster. At last, she lifted her new forearm. Zenos happily announced he had finished his work and the girl was healed. Proba said it was unbelievable. She admitted it was the first time she had encountered such healing abilities, and her brother said it was remarkable when he suddenly noticed a glow in the first-floor window. He was stunned to learn Reyes was his neighbor. Camilla admitted she wanted him to fail and even thought about ruining his life. Probast asked why she was so cruel. Zeno said that deep down she was a good person. Guy noted that something had changed now. Looking at them, she smiled and said the doctor was truly impressive and captivating. She said she liked him and that they would definitely visit him again, and the hero agreed and reminded her not to forget to pay. Slowly, the mysterious healer's name gained popularity. People came to him to thank him for his treatment. After preparing tea for the hero, she was thanked for her efforts. Seeing Camilla, he asked whether she would join them this time. She replied that she certainly would. Just as she was about to tell them about the last tribe, a loud blast of sound rolled through. Everyone instantly knew who had arrived. Wolves showed up in the house. The girls said in surprise that they never expected a treatment center to be in a place like this. He confirmed it and asked who she was. The girl said she was Linga, leader of the werewolves. She said she knew the workday was over. Ready to help, he said he could take a look if it was urgent. She reached out her hand to him. This is an emergency specifically for Zenos. She said that, despite how often they fought with Sophia's subordinates, they grew more and more lively, which she found odd. He said that if he died, no one could heal Sophia's subordinates, and then she could defeat her. The girl raised an axe at him. It was a crushing blow, but nothing happened. Stunned, she could not believe there was not a single scratch on it. Zeno explained he had cast a protective spell over the body. The girl asked the wolves for help. The girls shouted that if they could not kill him, they would destroy the clinic, and he must not underestimate the wolves' strength. Everyone froze. Linka asked why it suddenly felt so cold. Nil suddenly appeared before them. The wolves cried out in fear that it was a trap. Camilla angrily asked how she dared to attack her fortress. Zeno stopped her and said he understood how she felt, but his duty was to save lives, not take them. Gerald agreed. The hero thanked her for understanding and for not being angry. Camilla said it had been for the sake of her fortress and that the place felt cozier now than before. They headed down to the first floor. Linga asked the wolf's son if they had heard what the ghost said. He looked up in surprise. The girl turned to Zenos. She fell at his feet and begged for forgiveness. The hero was very surprised. The woman announced that no one knew he was the head of the family. A man tried to object, but Linga loudly ordered everyone to bow their heads to him. The wolves carried out the order and said that by doing so, they were showing their sincere respect for Mr. Xenos, ruler of Risu and the Supreme Being. He asked him to pay attention. Xenos said in surprise that first the lizard people appeared, then the werewolves came, and now the orcs are advancing. Zero wondered whether that meant the leader was ill, since he had not come himself. The orc said the leader could not move. Zeno said that if the patient cannot come on his own, Zeno must visit him personally. After saying goodbye to Lily, he set off, while the orc pointed the way. He faced the orc chieftain. An orc told Levi he had brought her an underground healer named Xenos. She said it was great and introduced herself. The hero asked where she knew him from. Levi said that in the underground world, especially in the slums, he was famous. The man was surprised. The girls said the lizard folk and werewolves considered Zeno an excellent healer, but did not want to draw attention to the orcs. So they said nothing. She added that this was how she learned about it. The girl asked if he knew why she couldn't move. The man said he found no external injuries, so he decided to examine the internal organs. The hero realized that magical stones are crystals filled with magical elements. They produce magic-like effects, and explosive stones are the highest class used for attack. He said that from what he could see, she was a real glutton. The hero pointed out that it might seem funny, but if left as is, the stone will come out on its own one day. The girl disagreed. Orcs surrounded her, shouting that they would all die with her. She replied that she had to lead them far away. He asked what would happen to him. Levi replied that they planned to give him all their wealth. That surprised him. She handed him the key and said that if the stone exploded, the tribe would die. It was better to give him everything than to let the bandits rob them. She said she had heard he was neutral and that he treated children for free, children she loved too. The orcs said they would follow her to the girl, warning her not to move. She screamed, terrified for Levi. They turned to the doctor anxiously, asking what he was doing to her. Their voices cut through the silence, telling him to step back. Holding the explosive stone in his hand, he showed it to them. The orcs were stunned. They asked what he had just done. He said he cut open her belly, removed the stone, and sewed up the wound. Levi was shocked when he heard that. He gripped the stone tightly in his hands. An explosion rang out, and the echo spread all around. Frightened, they squeezed their eyes shut. When they dared to open them again, they were surprised that nothing had happened. Even in the province, people could not believe Xenos had survived. Someone in the crowd said it was unbelievable. Apologizing for interrupting such an emotional moment, the hero said he had to return the key to the treasury and handed it to the girl. She said he would quietly take the treasure. Zeno said he expects a reward for his work because the job is not valuable enough to make anyone rich. She hugged the hero with joy, smiled, and said she liked him. She said he had become a true benefactor to the orcs and that they would turn to him immediately if anything happened. And he answered that he did not really want that. She admitted she was hungry and asked if Zeno wanted rice balls. He replied that he could no longer help her. Zeno sat calmly at the table. He asked if anything special had happened, and she said that recently Sophia, Linga, and Levi have been visiting her often. She said Sophia comes on Mondays, Linga on Wednesdays, and Levi visits on Fridays. They asked the hero if he knew why the visitors came, and the visitors said they had plenty of free time, but the girl disagreed, saying such important people should be very busy. Xenos said he did not understand that, and Lily offered a guess. Camille showed up and admitted they were in love. She said she thought they were in love with Xenos, and he dismissed it as nonsense, reminding her he was only an illegal healer without a license. She said, "You cannot hide anything from her. Love burns in their eyes, and she has lived in this world for 300 years. She admitted that something was bothering her now. The hero asked what was wrong. She replied that soon these three girls would compete for him, starting a real war. Zeno just laughed and called it ridiculous. Camilla advised Lily to do her best to entertain her, noting that women in love radiate a special beauty, and Lily thanked her sincerely. The ghost went back to the second floor, thinking about who Zeno was and why she had come. On Monday, Sophia showed up and told the doctor she planned to declare war on the other clans. Asked if he would side with her, he was taken aback. On Wednesday, Ling entered the room with news that she had decided to destroy them and asked him if he would side with her. On Friday, Levi entered and announced she intended to destroy them. Zenos asked for a little time. She also said they would start a war. The hero was confused. He said he did not understand what was happening. The battle for the underground healer among three girls is about to begin. Plans are set. Sophia said she will show who is the strongest here today. Sophia realized she had been merciful to others before, but today would be different. She called out to the girls, asking them to stop. Observers began shouting in response. Sophia asked if he had come to persuade them to give up the war, and Linga admitted she admired the hero, but could not do what he asked. Ancient conflicts between the species had long been brewing in secret. It was their decision to act at their own discretion. Lily confirmed this with a loud shout. Sophia pointed out it was good that Dr. Zenos did not object to their competition, suggested to the others that the winner should get the hero, and added it was a great opportunity. Lily said she would take part. Levi said only Lily deserved it, and the hero felt embarrassed. She reminded him that he had said there was no love between them. Then everyone rushed forward. Lily realized it had already begun. Vil flashed like lightning through the orcs, striking them with her blade. At the same time, she vaulted high with an axe, aiming at one of the lizard-like creatures. With a powerful strike, she brought her weapon down on him. Meanwhile, Levi aimed his attack at the wolf. Gripping the wolf's muzzle, she pressed it down with all her strength. This continued, causing many serious injuries. The writers looked exhausted. Sophia glanced around and asked what had happened. Admiring the orcs and ogres, she admitted she could not defeat them. They blamed her for not having defeated several dozen by now, but they barely took any damage. Suddenly, she realized it. She was surprised she hadn't noticed that their wounds were healing too fast. In the end, Rose noted that he had always been a healer. She smiled, realizing the point. She said it meant he had a duty to care for others' health, and could not believe he had spent so long caring for a whole group, adding that he ultimately refused to join either side, and seemed unlikely to support only one person. You laughed and said he would have to pay for that later. Linga asked, why continue then? Levi noted it looked like he would pay after all, as if it was time to end it. The clan leaders realized they were tired of the anger, hurt, and hatred passed down through generations, understood the endless fighting led nowhere, and decided to end the wars and live in peace. The women said they now had another reason to fight for Dr. Zenos. A man asked Lily what they were talking about. Lily said the hero was already on his way. She asked why he worked so hard to help everyone. A healer once told him something important. Lily exchanged a look with him, then turned and grabbed his sleeve. She admitted she really likes him. One simple act by the healer from the slums ended a long-standing racial feud. An important event will certainly shape Zenos' future. Events were also unfolding in the kingdom of Hades. Carol asked the commander if he wanted to meet her. Recognizing her as Commander Krishna's deputy, he said he had already been waiting for her. She then asked why he had summoned her so urgently. The commander said he was worried by alarming rumors. Carol began asking questions. It was reported that the long war between inhuman creatures suddenly ended, and they decided to stop fighting. Krishna asked whether the man was joking, noted everyone knew the area's power struggle had gone on for a long time. suggested someone might finally have gained the upper hand and eliminated their rivals, and expressed doubt they would have simply reconciled among themselves. They said they became friends because of one person. Krishna was surprised. In the kingdom of Hasis, a strict caste system had always ruled. Townspeople grew resentful over poverty and in turn clashed with both sides. That fragile balance lasted for many years. She reassured him, asking him to trust her, and promised that no one would destroy their foundation. He called her the Iron Lady and said he hoped for good news. Don't sneeze loudly. It's sometimes unpleasant. She promised to make him tea right away. The characters said their reaction was excessive. He put his hands over Zophia's wound and it soon healed. She said cheerfully that she was impressed by his healing skills. Lily noted that it seemed a long time since Sophia first came just as a guest. She said the royal guards actually treat them as criminals and chase them. Her brother added, they often have to fend off such persistent types. The girl spoke about the deputy commander of the guard, known as the Iron Lady. Merciless, she could kill without any hint of pity on her face. She told Zeno it would cause problems if a woman like that paid attention to him and asked if he agreed. Liulia gasped in surprise. She said she had a bad feeling. Zeno reassured her there was no point in worrying about what had not happened yet. He asked if it was true they would go to lunch soon. Lily confirmed cheerfully. He pointed out that she likes vegetable dishes. Linda said loudly that she wants fish. Levi emphasized that meat is the best food. Heroi remarked that no one had asked his opinion. Noting they were too demanding, he expressed hope that he would not have to deal with such difficult clients again. Walking the streets, she saw members of different clans laughing, joking, and drinking together. She walked on, thinking it couldn't be true. Seeing the giant, she asked if he could distract him for a few hours. The man asked what had happened. She said she had never seen the rebel behave so kindly toward an orc. The lizard noted that was not surprising since the war between them was over. After apologizing, he noted she looked a little suspicious and doubted he could figure her out, then suggested not to worry and that it might be better to live in harmony. His remark about underestimating the situation sparked a new idea. The lizard said he would go. The girl ordered him to stop, quickly stepping into his path and pressing the gun against his body. The man was scared and asked who she was. Krishna asked where he lived. The man made it clear he would not say anything, because that person had helped them more than once. Just as he moved to attack, Zosha and her brother walked by. Frightened, Krishna ran off and decided it wasn't worth fighting Chief Lizeraman and his brother on their territory. She remembered their hands had been badly injured, but could not understand why they now looked so well cared for. It became noticeably colder. Silence brought joy, because everyone had finally left the room. Suddenly the door opened and a politician walked in. The protagonist was stunned. It was Krishna. She admitted she was a little lost. She asked him for directions into town, and the hero immediately explained the route. A woman came out to them with a tray and asked the girl whether she was Zeno's new patient. Turning to the hero, she accused him of cruelty and pulled out a magic pistol to demand how he could use the girl as a slave. She aimed the pistol directly at Xenos and immediately pulled the trigger. The shot sent up a cloud of smoke, and the hero disappeared from view. She cried to him in fear. Krishna said she could not stand child kidnappers and that she would certainly see to it. She called to Xenos. Krishna explained to her that she was an elf and he was a human, that he was neither her father nor her master, and that now she was a child. She was free. Krishna assured the girl not to worry because she intended to catch the criminal. Lily disagreed. She declared that Xenos was not a criminal, but her rescuer who freed her from slavery. Krishna was shocked. Laurel admitted she might have jumped to conclusions. Lily cried out in shock when she realized she had shot him for nothing. A force seemed to leave the hero. She could not understand why he stayed conscious. She apologized, said she was glad he was unhurt, and asked how he had managed it. He replied that he had used protective magic. Pointing out that he had no scratches, she asked whether he was lying. It dawned on him that he had become a famous mage, having completely mastered protective and healing magic, and he tried to explain this with great patience. Zeno replied that this was not entirely so. Surprised, she insisted she could not be mistaken because she was the deputy commander of Krishna's royal guard, and they asked whether it was true after learning her position. Flustered, she probably could not have done otherwise in that situation. He repeated his question about whether she really was the deputy commander of the guard. She replied that people know her better as the Iron Lady, and he might have heard of her. Xenos was stunned. The commissioner told him she would appreciate his help with an investigation. Camilla, who had been eavesdropping, interrupted their conversation. She said she had come to the slums on a secret mission to find and arrest a particular person. The hero was surprised she told a stranger about it so easily. She said it was only so they could work together. She pointed out that the Imperial Guard never caught the criminal, which meant he was hiding somewhere, and added that because he was also in hiding, he might have heard something useful. Zeno asked who she was looking for. She said she was looking for the Arbiter, the one who stopped the war between the monsters and the slum dwellers. The hero grew very frightened. Someone asked what had happened, and Xenos said everything was fine while Camilla watched them. Camilla laughed as she watched them. Krishna noted that they had once believed the clan war would never end, but the situation had completely changed. As a defender of order, she said firmly that she could not afford to ignore such an influential person. She pointed out that even under threats, the creatures refused to speak of him and that he seemed to control their minds, even suggesting he was the devil's henchman. Xenos was stunned. He asked if she thought it made sense to continue the search. Krishna stepped in and explained that her mother had died because of poverty. He seemed unwilling to be found or noticed, so it was better to leave him alone. The girl turned back to him. She shouted, asking if he knew him. The hero replied loudly that it was only his guess. Krishna said he could not let him go because he might later oppose the state and become a threat. He said he might not even have thought of that. Noting that, though a bit greedy, he did not like to see others suffer, Zeno spoke to her. He asked Lily if she knew him, and she said she had no idea. The hero told the girl he would show her the way back to the city, so she should go back as soon as possible. She asked why he was in such a hurry. Suddenly, she noticed the bed and, surprised, asked why it was by the entrance. Fear gripped him. Calling it a bedroom felt odd, so he said the bed was by the door because they planned to throw it out later. The girl paused, thinking. It made everyone ask whether the girl was allowed to use it now. The place would be ideal as a base for the secret mission, and she would cover the lodging, and the girl asked if the hero would mind. Lily and her friend exchanged a puzzled look. He had to agree. Krishna happily thanked him for his cooperation. She vowed to catch the referee, the source of all trouble. Yiza noted that the number of women who bothered Xenos at the treatment center had also increased. Night fell. Turning to the hero, she noted how quiet it was at night, and then asked if he planned to return home after his mission. She noted that the city had eventually been destroyed by the plague and asked whether the dead could rise. Xenos said the beams might appear. If a girl is frightened, it may be better to turn back. The answer was that she should not be forced to return. Raising the dead was the highest power among the undead, and they would not encounter it here. Watching Camilla stare into the distance, the hero thought they had probably seen each other here every day. He brought the tea and quickly set the cup on the table. Zeno apologized, picked up the cup, and began to drink but burned his mouth. Apologizing, she explained her only weakness was a sensitive tongue. The hero noted she had other weaknesses. She started acting strangely. He asked what happened. Sitting on his lap, she left Zeno confused about what was happening. He shouted to her, and she began to stroke his head. He sat, watching Krishna with satisfaction. The hero could not understand what was happening and thought the girl was acting even more capriciously than usual. Miller laughed behind his back, saying it was jealousy. He shouted that she had frightened him, but the ghost replied that Krishna cannot see her. The hero asked why Lily might be jealous of him. Ray said he was living with a woman who had suddenly appeared on his doorstep, and Lily could feel him getting close to her. He noted that he had good relations with girls who aren't human, and still would not mind giving up his bed to the one who shot him with a magic pistol. Camilla was surprised to find that the girl who attacked him so fiercely was actually quite sensitive. She asked whether he really thought he could convince her of the pieces in his heart and what should happen next. She added that the fight for his love was about to begin. The hero told her to be quiet. She admitted there was some truth in what she said. She remembered wanting to blow on his hot tea, brush his hair, and peel an apple for him. He realized why she had been so affectionate toward him today. Lost in thought, Krishna wore a look of satisfaction. She now used the trick Camilla taught her. Turn to the hero and gently squeeze his cheeks. Lily felt extremely embarrassed. She shouted that she would keep him awake that night. Sleepy Lily rested on Xenos's lap, smiling. Krishna said she was probably having pleasant dreams. The hero agreed, adding that she seemed like a wonderful friend. He decided to talk to Camilla later. He carried the girl onto the bed and covered her with a blanket. She left the room, and he asked Krishna what had happened and what she was thinking. She said she was thinking of Lily, who had been taken by slave traders. The girl asked if he knew those people, and the hero said no. They left almost immediately while he focused on treating her. The coin reminded them that the elven girl was now a heroine. As they walked away, they agreed that if she was going to die anyway, they could at least profit from it. Krishna said she is certain child trafficking exists somewhere in this area because she investigated it before the current mission began. Thanos asked if that was why she shot him. The girl apologized to him. She said her short temper was her only weakness. The hero asked whether she had too many weaknesses. Christian noted there were not that many. She has already investigated a wide range of matters. He explained that the Lady of Steel is the embodiment of the Royal Guard's ideal and an indispensable hero to the kingdom's people. She said despite her weaknesses, she would always stand guard to keep order. That was meant for Zeno. Ashton asked if she could ask him one question, and he agreed. Her question was whether he was a master of defensive magic. He said he was not, but she asked him not to hide his true skill. Wanting his opinion as a true expert in the field, she asked if mastering healing magic would let her grow an arm. Krishna paused, wondering what she meant, and added that growing a hand is only possible if you are a saintly healer of the highest skill. While guarding a private estate for aristocrats, she said she clashed with Sophia Gale, the leader of a thieves' gang. She said she had caused a serious wound by shooting the other woman in the arm. She noted that when she saw Zofia in Islam, there wasn't a single scratch on her arm. She admitted that she had often pictured the Arbiter, wondered who Zofia had turned to, and finally reached a single conclusion. They say that if someone can heal such terrible wounds, that person must be very famous. Xenos is filled with anticipation. Krishna, deputy commander of the Imperial Guard, was said to have extraordinary insight and announced she would begin her investigations tomorrow. She said firmly that anyone who sows discord, incites the needy, and is a source of evil will certainly fall into her trap. The hero considered her words about the causes of evil. Why is she so hostile to the poor? The girl set the mug down and said it was a long story. He described her mother as deeply compassionate. People in the slums were hungry and poor, so she tried to help them with food. When they brought her lifeless body home, they decided to steal her wedding ring. The girl said her mother had saved countless poor people from starvation, but no one could save her, and from that day, she learned to laugh. He said she'd become the perfect heroine who would wipe out every criminal in the slums, so it would never happen again. Krishna said that since then, people began calling her the Woman of Steel because her face had become like an iron mask. As she said goodbye, the girl promised to return to the house in the evening. Apologizing, she admitted she had gotten a little lost. She knows someone cared for her. Leo reassured him not to worry, since nothing could be done about it, and he agreed. Zulifi had the wound on her hand carefully treated. They told her to be more careful, because you cannot heal someone who is dead. She apologized, and when remembering something important, said she wanted to tell him something essential. Zenos asked what it was about. She said a subordinate told her the Lady of Steel had heard about the existence of an arbiter. The hero took a deep breath. The girl asked what he meant by another breath, and Zofia and the others exchanged surprised looks. Krishna aimed a gun at her rival and asked why she had come here. The girl asked in surprise where this steel lady had come from. He shouted decisively that everyone was wrong. Camille said he looked like a man caught cheating. The girls asked whether he would explain everything. The deputy general asked her to visit the hospital to determine whether there was a danger of collapse. Sophia asked why they did not simply remove the item. The deputy insisted on visiting the hospital to inspect the situation and opened a discussion about whether that was the right course of action. She wanted to understand why the issue could not be solved immediately by removing the object, but first asked permission to pose one more question. Tell me what happened to her hand. She said her hand had fully healed and asked if the referee had helped treat the wound. Sophia said, in surprise, that there was nothing wrong with it. Pointing out that he had healed a wounded man, she demanded an explanation of why that could be wrong. The British voiced concern about the arbiter's influence. They feared unrest among the poor could threaten city residents' lives. The leader of the lizard people was questioned. Sophia advised her to look around, since evil people are not only among the poor, and asked whether the boss knew security was investigating a child trafficking case. He asked if she knew the aristocracy was behind it. She was stunned. She dismissed it as nonsense, insisting the illegal slave ring was in the slums. Sophia replied that the aristocrat would not let the ring be exposed easily. She asked if not being caught really meant he was not a thief, and added that they had to move the children into a special room at the country house. She said Tar was wrong about the judge. This man did not judge people by status, looks, or past. He simply saved the lives of those he met along the way. He shouted that he did not equate the poor with criminals, unlike her, and that her idea of justice was wrong. No one questioned her words, and she asked Zenos to step back. He apologized and promised to step in, since Sophia was his patient after all. The Iron Lady interrupted the conversation. The hero apologized for not saying it sooner. He explained that he was the judge. On her way out, she shouted that she wasn't pretending at all. She said it wasn't her fault and apologized for making her worry. This is unlikely, and she probably was not heading toward Islam. Krishna, sitting opposite, was surprised to see the deputy commander of the Imperial Guard himself come to meet him. The girl apologized for distracting him. She poured herself a cup of tea, apologized, and admitted that hot drinks were her only weakness. The ruler noted that even the Iron Lady had vulnerabilities. She thought she had heard rumors that he was a child trafficker, but could not be sure, even though she had come to confirm it was all lies. The missionary confirmed it was true, and they are trying to strengthen the defenses, but it was impossible to fully protect the entire area. You should request permission to inspect the estate's interior. The anti-theft system is in a high-risk area. He stared intently at Galanda. Galanda hesitated. He peered around the large house, looking into the kitchen, the bathroom, and out onto the street. He realized the rumors were false, and his visit had been pointless. He asked how she was doing, and she said everything turned out to be much better protected than she had expected. Surprised, she asked if everything was all right. Krishna reassured her that everything was fine. She apologized and asked if she could use the bathroom, and he said, of course she could. Leaving the room, she paused and thought how strange it was. She looked at the guards and said, this is impossible. Realizing they'd forced her to hand over the magic pistol at the entrance, she now feared being left defenseless. After passing the guards, she approached the well and peered inside. Finding the well completely dry, she noticed a ladder inside that led down and started to climb down. She climbed down and finally reached the bottom. A corridor stretched out ahead. Her mind raced with things she had to check because someone needed help. Her friend pictured a cage full of blindfolded children. The children asked who she was. He admitted he was afraid. The girl calmed them, saying everything would be fine and she would not hurt them. The master noted that, as expected, the Imperial Guard's magical weapon was special and could easily frighten those cowards. He had a strong sense that something bad would happen if he delayed, but he had not expected this at all. The wounded Krishna was on. The Lord said people like her should not try to copy the aristocracy. He lifted dozens of poor people out of destitution, considered himself the local aristocrat, and unlike the mindless sheep, could do whatever he wanted. She apologized to her mother for failing to become a heroine. The master said she looked pitiful, that the hierarchy is fair, and that she would pay for her behavior with her life. Suddenly, someone shouted that bandits had appeared and were closing in fast. Galanda was stunned. Sophia asked if he wanted to know why they were still alive. The host did not understand what was happening. He knew it was unfair because the master had a habit of ruthlessly confirming the worst expectations. He took the call immediately and had to stay ready because it could last a dangerously long time. They shouted insults, but the heroes advised ignoring them, calling him a poor healer. Sophia said she was only a guide. The wounded Krishna looked at them. A loud shout went up, asking if anyone was there. Sophia explained that her boys were playing outside, so help would have to wait a bit. The holy man confirmed they were lizard people, just as the rumors about these bandits said. He warned them not to try to intimidate him by calling him an idiot, because as former street thugs, they could simply shoot the attackers. Pointing a pistol at Zenos, he shouted for him to stand up and said he would take them out one by one. Krishna warned him to be careful because a magic pistol without a limiter is extremely dangerous. Calling them ignoramuses for being on a noble family's land and saying they should know their place, he suddenly realized it hurt him very, very much. The gentleman was stunned. He thought about how they could do that, and at the same time began firing both magic pistols. The hero's hand emerged from the smoke. He laughed loudly after saying he would teach the beggars a lesson. Krishna turned to Zenos. Stepping out of the smoke, he stood directly before the Lord. The frightened man's gun hit the floor, and the hero asked why he had been shooting wildly, urging him to think about his conscience. He raised a pistol. The Lord said it was his weapon. Zenos pressed the pistol to his temple. Fearfully, the man asked what he was doing. The doctor said that anyone who decides to shoot others must be ready to take a bullet in return. He reminded the man not to forget this. The man nearly pulled the trigger. He dropped to his knees and shouted for them to stop because he now understood they were honest robbers and he was ready to pay them. The hero replied that he was not one of the robbers. The Lord asked what he wanted then. The man replied he simply could not accept that the Lord had decided without hesitation to roast him with a magic pistol. He cried out loudly that he understood and begged for mercy, admitting his guilt. Zeno refused firmly. The master asked why. The hero pointed to Krishna and asked the man to apologize to her. The founder admitted he was wrong after some blood rushed to his head, then fired one shot, apologized, and asked whether those apologies were enough. The heroes said the apologies were rejected. The Lord asked loudly why that happened. Zeno asked whether the other man thought he had already apologized. Zeno added that he was not really a Christian to his girlfriend, just trying to support her. The man wondered what had hurt him then. The heroes insisted they must first apologize to an important person. Shocked that the man had tried to intimidate him to get more for himself, the hero realized the man did not grasp how serious the situation was and decided to teach him a lesson. But the Lord asked him to wait. He knows how to shout, to make someone feel what it is like to be cast as a patient. A gunshot cracked. The man shouted, asking what he was doing, then cried out in pain. The blow struck him in the stomach, knocking the man back against the wall. He cried out. The man lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Krishna asked if Zeno had killed him. The man answered that he had turned on the limiter so Galander stayed alive. He said it was not his place to judge the scoundrel. Krishna said it was already too late and suggested handing the case over to Imperial Guard headquarters. The hero asked whether she was a member of the guard. Her left arm and side were injured, and it seems her internal organs were damaged as well. The girl lay on the ground. Zeno assumed she thought it was all over. The woman was surprised. That clashed with the Iron Lady's image. She will cry when he brings her to life. Again, she asked the question, unaware of what was happening. Treatment began, and Krishna was surprised. She reported torn blood vessels and soft tissues, broken bones, and dying tissue, so the bleeding must be stopped, and these wounds healed. She turned back to him, but he noticed she was distracting him and asked her to be quiet for a moment. She looked at him and said he was a true savior. Smiling, he replied that it was nothing. He claimed to be just an ordinary dark healer from the slums. Krishna rose, looked at his healthy side, and admitted she could not believe her eyes. She said this meant the hero had amazing healing magic. Another agreed. She was surprised that a mother could have both protective and healing magic at once. Zeno said that was not unusual. Sophia agreed, said she had seen it herself, and Krishna confirmed her words. He bowed and apologized. Carol admitted her mistakes, saying she could not see herself as a perfect heroine. The hero thought for a moment. It is impossible to be a flawless hero without fear or pangs of conscience, and those who fight for their truth cannot avoid bruises and wounds. They said healers exist for this. Krishna turned to him and said he did not like speaking for others. He noted that despite the serious wounds she suffered in battle, they saw her as a true heroine. The girl asked who it was for. She asked if Auntie was all right. The next question was whether the kind aunt had won. Pino put his hand on her shoulder and said she was the first to act. She said that when the truth was kept from outsiders, she stood up to the aristocrats, and after learning that children needed her help, decided to rescue them. Only she knew who the real hero was. She began to stutter. It was a little funny. She shouted to the children that everything was fine, and that with just a little more, she would pull them out of there. She said her mother was probably like that too. She said she had always thought her mother was a pitiful victim, but her mother's eyes always shone with joy when she gave food to children in the slums. He agreed, saying Krishna had become a real hero to the children, and there was no doubt. declared she had always aimed for perfection. She said her mother was clumsy, bright, absent-minded and forgetful, yet almost perfect in her flaws. And despite everything, there was something special about her. Without a doubt, her mother was her true hero. Sophia shouted for the hero to leave immediately. He said everything now depends on Krishna and promised to come back later to pay for the treatment. She asked him to wait. Sinos wondered why they had come to her aid. He hesitated for a moment. She said she had promised to pay for the lodging, and if she died needlessly, no one would be left to pay her debt. He told her to pay precisely what she owed and promised to add it to her medical bill. Krishna hesitated for a moment, then laughed. She laughed aloud, and Zeno just watched her, surprised. When Zeno asked what had made her laugh so much, tears came to her eyes. She said that on the day her mother died, she lost the ability to laugh forever. So angry and overwhelmed with grief, she could not even smile. They wondered how she could smile while at least one criminal was still free. Krishna said it meant she was smiling for the first time. It had to be admitted that her laugh was a bit creepy, and Sophia agreed, adding that it might even be frightening. She replied that nothing could be done, and that she had not laughed like that for so long. She said that her inability to laugh was just one of her many faults. At that moment, Ashton's group was on the road. One of the men said they had finally come to a dead end. He warned them not to test his patience. Someone on the team said a bottle of wine would taste good right now. Another added they would sort everything out quickly and make up for lost time in town. A third agreed. Andres asked whether anyone had noticed how stunned the tavern girl was when she learned they were from the Golden Phoenix. Yuma asked who among them should go ahead. The man said, "Whoever walks ahead will get the reward." Ashton told them to stop arguing like market vendors. Forget the commoners, because now noble ladies will long for them. At first, they would become the highest-ranking mercenaries, and later, after retiring, become aristocrats. Ahead of them were the foxes Ashton suggested they look at. They said they'd become incredible agrillas. They have fur problems, and the young skins become softer and more valuable. Drawing his sword from its sheath, he warned the men to be careful, and said that Lord Fennel would be pleased. He noticed his blade starting to rust. He shouted to Gale to cast the protective spell, and she agreed. Place the sheet on the ground and begin chanting the spell. Meanwhile, Ashton lunged forward to attack the enemy without warning. His sword almost found its mark, but the beast cleverly dodged. Some of his armor and clothing had warped from intense heat. Suddenly, he heard a piercing scream. Ashton looked around and saw the fire lizard bite Yuma. Pained cries burst from Yuma. Ashton did not even have time to understand what was happening. One of the foxes launched a huge fireball from its mouth, and he barely dodged it. Andres was told to cast an attack spell. He replied that he was already summoning it. He shouted to Andres to keep going and asked what he was doing. Andres suggested holding on a little longer. Shouting at Gale, he asked if he had cast the protective spell. Gale said he had done everything right and did not know what the problem was. The group leader responded angrily. The fox kept biting Yuma, and Yuma began to lose consciousness. He had no idea what was happening around him. Shout to Andres and ask where the attacking magic was. He replied that to avoid damaging their skin, the magic spells must be adjusted more carefully, and he needed extra time. Ashton felt tension. It was quite strong. After they fell back, he yelled at the team, scolding them for not being able to deal with even these weak B-plus foxes. Andres cried out that the man was fighting inhumanly and asked what kind of ballet that was. Galagrady. He said they had been badly roughed up. It turns out the hated Xenos is really here. All this happened because the task from one of the 7 great houses was at stake, and he could not afford a single mistake. A few days later, the team returned to the same spot. Ashton regretted that he had lost too much time. Ask Amina for help. Her reply is that you should not hold on to false hopes. She explained she usually works as a healer at the Royal Harbour and only has adventuring qualifications. She wondered why the Golden Phoenix, capable of defeating even an A-class magical beast, had sought help from a mid-level healer like her. She replied that a lot happens here too. I asked the girl if Yuma would be all right. She said he'd survived but wasn't ready for adventure anymore. She considered just taking the pelt and going home. In the end, he said he doubted Yuma was truly worthy of the majestic Golden Phoenix. He told Andres not to delay the magic this time. Andres said he understood and was already prepared. He straightened him to face Giles and asked if he really was not drinking this time. Giles nodded and assured him everything was under control. The foxes raced toward them at furious speed. The crates burst into flames that quickly spread around. Ashton shouted to Gale to hurry and hide. Gale told Ashton to trust him. The team was ready for battle. The leader believed they only needed to gradually reduce the number of Avgurlis. A powerful blow sent Andres flying backward. He turned to him and asked what had happened. He asked if he was still continuing and said Andres was in danger without proper treatment. The team leader was puzzled. He thought defeating the beast on his own would be difficult because its body was so exhausted it needed Andres's destructive magic. Even if they continued their efforts here, they would be too exhausted to use Andres' magic. His hands trembled as he retreated. Looking for a way out, he loudly asked what was happening. He shouted that this time he would not listen to Gao's excuses that his uniform was not in proper condition. Gu replied that he did not understand what was going on. Reported that the protective magic had been activated. He pointed out that without it the man would have died instantly. Ashton shouted he would not allow it if he was seriously wounded and ordered her to treat him immediately. The girl replied it was already understood. She said they had to make a formula and say the spell, taking the wound into account. After first aid, they should immediately send him to the healing center and use restoration magic. Ashton was stunned that there was no time and she had to heal him right here and now. The woman asked what it was about, interrupting the conversation in surprise. I realized this group hadn't gone skating since they got rid of that guy. He asked if she was joking and explained why he hadn't accepted it yet. It was hard to imagine, and he asked whether such a person existed. The team leader answered no. He seemed to imply that a poor man could not have done it. One thing was clear. The time to finish the task was running out quickly. The man told Ashton that Ashton had been naive to rely on him and that the man would not come here again. Ashton asked him to wait. He sought an audience with Lord Fennel. The man said the lady's birthday had already passed and asked their purpose in coming. Lord Fennel's anger came not just from their failure, but from the man's belief that it was impossible. A quick call ahead would have spared him the embarrassment of arriving at the ladies' party empty-handed. He assured them it was not like that at all, that everything was fine for them. They were about to beat Firefox. The man asked what exactly the other person meant. The team leader said there was a traitor among them, and they were about to expose him when the Cynosi suddenly left them. The man asked again for the hero's name, saying it sounded odd. He had never heard any member of the Golden Phoenix called that name. He thought omitting the name from official and written records was right, so slum residents would not be listed as group members, and he later admitted his mistake. Someone said an archer named Huma had betrayed them. Gale stepped in and asked what it was about. Ashton said it was true that the man was worthless. The man replied he was sorry to hear that. A man said he had learned that 2 members of their group were seriously injured and in the hospital, and asked what chance they would give the group now that only half the members remained. A group member said it was not a problem because they would soon find a suitable replacement, so he asked for another chance. A man promised to inform Lord Fennell. Ashton thanked him. He wanted to know what the man planned to do next. Ashton said not to worry and added that their group had another slave. He assured that the man would surely be glad to return and would even shed a tear of happiness if they brought him back. Zeno should be grateful that he chose to come for him. I realized raids alone take a lot of time, as does completing guild tasks. Traveling while loaded with gear, food, and supplies takes a lot of time and effort. That's why they started recruiting people from the lower social classes into the team. They can be used whenever needed. Zeno felt he had found no refuge anywhere. Turning to the hero, he asked about his work. The hero replied that he had no job. Someone asked if he would join him on the raid. Zeno was very surprised. He said he had heard that people of a certain class could not be adventurous, but the group leader usually ignored such divisions if someone had the desire and the ability. He asked if the person could do anything. The hero said he knew a little healing magic. Justin noticed they were missing a healer, so he offered to join their team. The final thought that filled Ashton's mind. He said he does not need to worry about it at all, and that thoughts of going back to that thing do not bother him. He said he had thought Zeno long dead. The group leader replied that this was not so, and that she might be alive, and he added that he had given Zeno a gold coin as a farewell so he could hold out longer. Noting that the settlement was large, he asked how they planned to search, and then said he had one idea. He said 3 main groups of non-humans are fighting over territory in the thickets. Apparently, lizard men, werewolves, and orcs. Turning to the lizard, he asked if it could lead them to the leader, explaining he had a job offer. The lizard asked who they were and where they had come from. The leader said he was the leader of a gold-level squad and told them to follow him. Sophia pointed out that the name of his rank was rather long and suggested getting down to business. The group leader asked for help finding a man named Zeno, noting he had appeared in the slums about 2 months ago. He called out, asking whether she knew Zeno. She said she was tired of it all and had nothing to do with fools. Angry, he drew his sword and asked what she took him for. She asked whether he himself realized who he was talking to. After calming down, he said he had wasted his time and hurried away. After they left, the girl warned them that if they messed with the doc, they would face consequences. A partner shouted that he didn't know anything and said not to worry because 2 other groups were still available. Arriving at Linga, she said they were a bunch of scoundrels who had driven out Mr. Zeno. It seemed better to her that they die and be reborn as Dung's flies. She was surprised that the girl also knew Zeno. The girl said the doctor did not care at all what happened to the Dung flies, and that they should leave as soon as possible. The group leader angrily demanded to know how she could say that. Finding himself among enraged werewolves, he asked if they were getting ready to jump. He shouted angrily, demanding to know what was happening. Gao replied that he had no idea. The squad commander said they still needed to meet the hero because they could not do without him. There were still orcs left, and we had to go to them. They met Levi, who asked whether they had driven Xenos out and what they wanted from him now. They were surprised. It was very cute. Carol pointed out that if they start bothering the doctor, the orc clan will not stay out of it. They asked Ashton to keep quiet. Surprised, he looked at them, said he understood, and thanked them, adding that he usually wears a back brace. Watching the reactions of all 3 groups, it seemed they adored Xenos. But that was not the case. An unexpected idea occurred to him. He said it was a different person, and by coincidence, that person was an influential figure with the same name. Gale asked about rumors of being dropped from the roster. The team leader assured it was just a coincidence and that such things are common. He thought the last likely person who had influence could have been Xenos. He vowed he would never believe that the man he had always despised was respected by all the big bosses of the underworld. The man would be found, he insisted. The hero called to Lily. Lily agreed and said she still didn't remember the way. Zeno added that the slums were full of confusing alleys. Watch Zeno smile. Finally, he seemed to have found it and began calling out loudly. He saw them and was clearly surprised. The group leader joyfully announced that Xenos was still alive. The doctor said goodbye and explained he had urgent business. People there urged him to stay and called for him to stop. The hero was searching for him, and when asked why, the man said happily that he was being returned to the Golden Phoenix team. A surprised look on his face showed he was astonished. Ironically, he said he would not go, but Ashton added that he would after all, since such an opportunity does not come every day. Once he had finally composed himself, he called out loudly, cutting into the conversation. If he hadn't heard it, and if the hero was sure he would not leave, the man said so. The group's leader asked for the reason. Xenos replied that there was no reason not to. He said it was unfair. The pay was meager, there were no benefits, and people usually refuse in such cases. He protested that this was not true, since he was still inviting him. The hero replied that he might consider joining them on a raid at least once in his free time. For the right pay, he might agree. A member of the group spoke up in surprise. Renault said he will no longer work for free. 1 million for a single healing, and 3 times that for using protective magic or boosting abilities, and these terms are not open to negotiation. Petulantly he cried out, asking who the other thought he was, and the other replied that he had nowhere to go here. Even a passing orc greeted the hero and asked how his legs were. The orc said they were fine thanks to the hero. The wound healed instantly, and that was all the treatment he needed, he said. Sinos only told him to watch his weight. The orc's name was Grid. He said they could meet there and that next time they'd wait for the doctor. He thanked him. Ashton was impressed. It turned out that Xenos was the same Xenos. They watched him speak with various non-humans. Ashton realized that the Golden Phoenix was intact only because of him. Shorter said Ashton had suggested expelling Zeno and asked what Ashton planned to do next. Then Ashton got angry, told Shorter to be quiet, and insisted everyone agreed with him. Lily said these men were very noisy, and the group's leader shouted, asking what kind of uncle he was to her. They announced they would leave. They asked and shouted if he would leave just like that. They asked if he really did not want to return to them. Todd said he really did not. He was fine here. One of the group said, reminding him that he was the one who had taken him in and sheltered him. Seeing this, Nee stopped apologizing. He asked them to consider his opinion because they regularly have lunch at his place. After leaving, he said it was already late. He only reached out his hand after him. He ordered everyone not to ignore him. The gang leader wondered if he was caught up in the crowd's praise, and added that one day he would be an aristocrat. Ashton drew his sword from its sheath. Top took aim at Xenos when he suddenly heard someone shout for him to get up. Ashton, from the pistol's magical liquid. He crashed into the building with a loud cry. The girl said he was bold because he dared to attack right before her eyes. Krishna announced that the Imperial Guard unit would not let him avoid responsibility. One of those present spoke up in surprise. Sinos turned to Krishna and asked what she had forgotten here. Rural said she was on her way to his place and hurt her finger here. He told her to lick the scratch, saying it would heal. Embarrassed at being willing to do it for him, Hirona offered to cover the entire treatment, and he replied by swearing at her. Justin couldn't place the name Krishna, recalling that she had helped solve several cases and was rumored to be the youngest deputy commander of a division in the Imperial Guard. You couldn't understand how she became friends with Sinos. The hero asked who he was and what it all meant. She said she was taking him to the police station for attempted assault. Ashton was stunned. Ashton did not intend to attack, but Zeno's actions forced him to act. The boy will ask him what it is about. The group's leader fled while Krishnesh shouted his name. Running hard, he began to gasp. Hiding behind the corner, he knew Zeno would not be able to ignore him. Sophia tried the jam and said it was delicious. Linda said loudly that she made it from apples. Levi added that he also helped her. She claimed he only helped carry the pot, and that she did all the work herself. Levi objected that she had brought the apples and had asked at the start to add sugar and salt. The werewolf leader promised to keep the secret. Sophia noticed they had reached the point where the orc leader and the fearsome werewolf were making jam together. She asked what was happening. Levi noted that Sophia had proven herself in the situation with that aristocrat, so she and Lingo stopped taking part. Lingo said she was beginning to see that they had decided to join forces to look better. The girl said that despite everything, she was still one step ahead in the dock war. Linga got angry. Levi said it was unfortunate, but there was nothing to gain. Then Zeno came in and said he had heard everything from the start. The hero asked Lily to make a few more if she had any materials left. Lily smiled and agreed. The windows took a knife and spread jam on the bread. She assured them it was nothing like that because the taste was simply amazing. The girls were impressed. Sophia shouted that he should not say that, even if it was true, because they might end up overconfident. Linga was glad it had worked out. Linga admitted she was happy. Levi suggested it was only the first day, and Sophia was about to cry. Camille, laughing, noted that for now it was a draw. Sophia spoke to Xenos and said some thugs had recently come to her home and forced him out of the team. The hero asked if she meant Ashton. They reported they still could not find him. Ringa admitted she could not find him, and even her keen wolf nose failed to help. Levi added that he too could not catch him in the orc snares. He asked whether that man had returned to his district. Sophia said she would really like that to happen. The werewolf leader warned there could be trouble if he lost control, and Levi agreed. Again, he asked about the depths of the slums. Neil said it was an underground guild. The hero asked if that was true, and Sophia replied that, in other words, it was an illegal organization. He noted that if a task comes up that cannot be handled alone, people usually turn to them. Regular guilds follow state-approved rules for fulfilling orders and for payment. To join this system, you must pass a qualification test. The girls recalled it might be linked to drug dealing, murders, and revenge plots. There were also rumors that an underground guild was involved in an aristocrat's child trafficking case. Fear showed on her face as she asked what would happen if that loud man demanded something bad from the underground guild, and Zeno asked whether she meant him when she called him that. He said he didn't know, but as far as he knew, a job from the underground guild cost a lot of money. Camilla said that since they had deliberately gone into the slums to find Zeno, their situation was probably already critical, which eased Lily a little. Sophia grew thoughtful, and the girl asked if everything was all right. One recalled hearing a rumor about someone in an underground guild who recently accepted assignments under certain conditions instead of money. Rumors spread that he called himself a leader. It was reported that the client was sent here because he did not have enough money to pay for the order and the meat. He reassured them that he accepts more than just money. Describing himself as a guide, he asked what the client had ordered. Asked the client to explain the reason, since he said other members of the underground guild won't care as long as they are paid, but it matters a lot to him. The guide explained that the motives seem tangled and selfish, and it's likely not revenge, but plain resentment. He said he would not refuse, because this was the kind of occasion he liked, and he would gladly do the favor. His hands guided the mysterious black stone, and he said he was just researching it and thought it was the right time to use the discovery. Rest assured, the client's order will be completed properly. The conductor assured him that he would remember his name. Lily noticed his head had drooped and asked Zeno if he could fall asleep. Apologizing, he said he would go to bed soon. She asked if he would drink black tea and if he could sleep afterward. He reassured her he was fine and asked her to bring some tea. He poured the tea and Zenos began to drink. Earl asked how he was doing. He said everything was as wonderful as always and thanked her. And when she touched his head, he was quite surprised. She admitted that when she could not sleep, he usually stroked her head. The hero replied that now she had helped him, and he thought he would sleep peacefully. Lily drifts off peacefully in her bed. Nila, enjoying her tea, asked the doctor if he had already woken up. Someone asked if she was here, and a man replied that Lily had made 3 cups of tea, and he simply could not refuse. And Ray noted that was typical of Lily because she always shows care. Thoughts of his old team kept returning, and he asked if his dream was coming true. He noticed she asked if he made her nervous. Camilla said it was not about that. She just wanted to chat, because there was nothing to do at night. He smiled. He said he no longer worried about memories of his ex. Once he opened the rehab center, he got so busy he barely thought about Ashton. Camilla said she now remembers how he treated her, regrets hitting him once, and wants to be open with Frank. She said life is short and fleeting, so it's best to return the favor while you still can. Carefully examining his palm, he agreed she might be right. She mentioned she had heard about his training in healing magic there and asked how he had managed to succeed. He said he first lived in the local orphanage, but only now realized how terrible it was, taking everything that could be turned into cash. He said he was against it, so he hid the bodies without taking anything and was often beaten for it. And Camille noted that leaving a body could cause an epidemic, so the hero acted correctly, to which he replied that he had not thought of that before. Reno admitted that despite all his efforts, they usually found them. One day, a naive idea occurred to him. At that time, he did not realize it, and tried every day to revive himself. The experts said he studied the skin's structure, the layout of the muscles, the paths of the blood vessels and their branches, and the positions of the organs. By then, he knew nothing about anatomy and did not know what was needed, why, or how it worked. Yet he never began to study. Stop thinking, fantasizing, and observing. Neil was stunned, convinced that the slums were home to various creatures are dying. Pedro admitted that at first his lessons did not mean much, but he kept at it every day, year after year, until his body began to absorb white light. And in that moment, he felt a response and believed he could now make his plan real. On the day he tried to bring someone back to life, a man came up and hit him on the head. Furious, he glared at the hero and lifted him, firmly grabbing his clothes. This young man must never use this power on the dead. It should be used on the living. He never learned his true name. And knowing only life in the slums, he got a chance to see the whole world thanks to one person. People called that man tough, though he looked suspicious. The mentor often used favorite sayings, and the ones he remembered most were that third-rank healers only close wounds, second-rank healers treat people, and the highest-ranking healers restore the world. Emile noted this was clearly different from resurrection magic. In her time, there was magic to make golems, copies of living beings, and that was about 300 years ago when the demonic lord was still alive. Now regarded as a forgotten dark power, homunculi were once made from a magic stone of sulfur, carbon, and other elements. They knew neither pain nor fear, and a golem that follows orders without complaint is an extremely unpleasant opponent. Minos asked Fia what she had been doing 300 years earlier, and she replied that it was a long time ago, and she no longer remembered. They suddenly heard some sounds. The hero asked what the noise was. Camilla, her eyes drifting across the ceiling, said it sounded like it was coming from the underbrush. Destroy them by tearing down buildings, forcing the brutes to flee faster each time. Xenos watched with admiration. Approaching the living pile of stones, he called it a golem. Bella appeared behind him and said this was the biggest mystery yet. He told her she had scared him. He wanted to know what had brought her here. She admitted she could not resist her curiosity and wanted to learn more. Someone asked about Lily, and the hero said she was still asleep, which was for the best, because if she had seen this, if he had run over to them and called for a doctor, the rest of the clan leaders would be there with her. Coordinate with the girls to gather all the wounded in one place. The available data did not show who controlled this giant living creature. He did know one thing for sure. Reno said it would cost him a lot, and urged others to keep their promise. The guide, peering through magic binoculars, studied the golem closely and noted its destructive power matched the calculations, but its speed was still too slow. He noted that unfortunately, a lot more work is still needed on this. The doctor said this would be enough for the current task. He reflected on how Ashton had been assigned to deal with Venzinos, his former squadmate. Memories of Ashton finding him in the slums, giving him shelter, and tolerating his arrogance came to mind. He thought the group leader had lost a lot while Zeno had gained much, and that was unacceptable. Showing his hurt so selfishly seemed wrong, but the boy was oddly drawn to it. Watch how people behave and what they feel in different situations. He said Ashton's order was in his best interests. By 9 in the morning, he figured neither the Imperial Guard nor the Imperial Hospital would rush to help, and they would likely stand aside without scruples, so he knew he could not rely on outside help. He said he would see those who adore him die one by one before his eyes. Is that what Xenos would do to bask in glory? The hero called on the non-human creatures to hurry and carry the wounded, loudly saying that werewolves had the keenest sense of smell and could find the wounded by the scent of blood, and Xenos said the orcs had the strength of 5, could carry several at once, and urged them to show what they could do. Around the hero lay the height of the wounded. Now is the time to step back, to make room to move forward. We know a higher level of healing was applied, and bright light filled everything around. He urged those who had been healed to evacuate immediately. By luck, the golem was moving slowly, so if they tried their hardest, they would definitely be able to escape. He shouted, asking how much time was left, and when Camilla asked why he was so nervous, he shouted that he would not be. Moving such a huge number of people alone was unthinkable for her, especially after their number grew overnight. He shouted that he could not expect compensation. Worried about Lily, who had stayed home, he did not want the villain involved. Ray admitted he had complaints, but did not think the plan was a failure. The guide peered at the hero through his binoculars and said, "This is the surprise." He called to Xenos to leave everything as it was and admitted he admired people who surpassed his expectations. He was sincere in his aim to save all the wounded and did so with a calm expression. Yet he could not understand why such a capable young man spent his days in the slums. The guide said he accepts the doctor's win in the first round, but they will still discuss the second. The hero ordered the clan leaders to report to him. Sophia said no one else was hurt. Zeno thanked them for their hard work and said he was tired. They reported that thanks to his efforts, no one was hurt, and he said, "Excellent." Seeing the approaching golem, he realized only one problem remained. Cameo guessed what it was. As she had said before, she confirmed it was an artificial creature brought to life by a magical stone. The hero asked if the creature would return home by itself when he got tired of it if he left it here. Camilla said no, because once it got an order, the golem would not stop until it carried out that order. She said their supplies were already nearly depleted 300 years ago during the great battle between humans and demons. The dark magic system had been lost long ago, and training materials were hard to obtain. It was beyond her to understand how anyone had managed to create such a thing. Camilla asked where they should move. The answer was clear: where to go to defeat this monster. The boss announced they were leaving with the doctor. He agreed, but said he had to leave because he could not pay the risk fee. Sophia said firmly she would not back down and insisted they could not sit idle while their homes were being destroyed. Linga said confidently these were their neighborhoods, and she would not let them be trampled. Levi, full of courage, challenged them and said they should not be afraid. He asked Camilla how best to defeat the golem. Camilla advised the magic stone inside the golem had to be destroyed, because without it, the golem would keep regenerating. No one else knew that was the only way. For the first time in a long time, I received a reward for participating in a battle. Regretting that the broken magic stone could not be sold, they set off. They studied the golem, working out a plan of action. They decided to begin by hitting him as hard as they could. He said there was no point in being afraid. The hero applied boosts to agility, physical strength, and attack. A lightness swept through her body. Lingo guessed it was all thanks to Casinos. Levi said it was great, and it was time to act decisively. The girls rushed to attack the golem's legs. A giant golem let out a piercing cry and swung hard, ready to strike the girls. The golem swung his fist and hit Ling. She was thrown into the wall with incredible force. The others screamed in terror, but she was up almost instantly without a single scratch, and everyone said it was all thanks to Mr. Zenos's magic. He summoned a vision and felt he was slowly remembering how to fight better. Follow 2 rules. First, keep a certain distance so the magic's effect is not reduced. Second, the activation forms for healing, attack, and enhancement differ and cannot be used at the same time. During a fight, you must instantly switch from one spell to another. With a smile, Zeno said he had almost mastered the art. He realized that even if his hands or legs were destroyed, they would grow back from the ground and stone, but full recovery would take some time. The hero shouted that they would all attack both of his legs at once. He figured they'd first try to disable his legs, and while he recovered, they'd find where the magic stone was hidden so they could strike accurately. Olivia admitted she never expected the day would come when they would fight side by side. Linga thanked Xenosan for that, and Levi said she felt a lightness in her soul for the first time when they trusted her to protect them. The boy noticed Zeno had once again impressed him by winning such loyalty from a hastily formed team. It was unfair that he used the special structure magic so skillfully, and the second-round victory went to him as well. A cry rose through this chaos. Sophia shouted to the doctor that something was wrong and pointed to the child. A little girl sat on the rocks. Terrified, the girl sat with her hands over her ears. The golem moved close but did not touch her. Surprised, Mia immediately rushed to the girl. Mia managed to catch the child in her arms and step aside quickly. Camille said it was unbelievable. Reno noted that she had said a specific magical stone used for resurrection could no longer be obtained and asked whether that was true. Camille confirmed. The hero asked how to infuse life into an ordinary magical stone. Ray listened skeptically. The golem asked if it was Ashton. Glancing at Xenos, he noticed that he seemed to understand everything. Realizing he could no longer get a top-grade magical stone for the golem's core, he considered how to bring it to life with a less perfect stone. He chose to use a living woman, bind her to a magic stone, and create a new core for the golem. Although I had that thought, it is usually hard to control someone overwhelmed by a complex mix of emotions. So a person with simpler, clearer negative feelings was needed, and by chance, one appeared. Fueled by revenge, the man implanted a magic stone in himself and used it to create a golem. He asked Xenos how he plans to end the battle. He noted that such a pitiful soul was in for an interesting sight. The hero stared at the golem. As soon as he said it, they backed away. Only the two of them were left here, he told Ashton. He said their story began the moment he called him, because rescuing a child was not something he usually did. The man who came forward seemed to come from the very bottom of society. Gale said he was obsessed with money and social status. Yuma said it was because he couldn't afford medicine for his younger sister, and she died. All at once, they flew into a rage and rushed the hero, throwing punches. Warner said it had been unbearable for the golem to see the stray they had taken in and later abandoned, looking happier than him, and the golem had wondered how the stray knew there was nowhere to go. But now Warner understood, who, like him, also had no home of his own. Kilham struck with all his might. A cloud of dust rose. Using the leg boost, he definitely pushed himself backward. That no longer mattered to him, so he drew the enchanted scalpel. Shouting, he dashed at the golem, holding a huge scalpel. The hero began swinging the scalpel, striking the rocks. He swung the scalpel and plunged it straight into the chest. He managed to make a hole. His emergence from the golem's womb was unexpected. The heroes said they had crossed paths with him here again. Though they did not want to, it was the last time he could see his face. Armed with a scalpel, he launched an attack on Ashton. It was time to end their adventure with him, she said. Blood pushed her to that decision. An onlooker noted Zeno had decided to act, but was unsure he could kill without hesitation. The onlooker had expected a more tense resolution. He immediately noticed something was wrong here. The hero kept striking fiercely with the scalpel without pausing. You could say it is a little painful and needs some patience. Linka asked why Doc was poking around inside for so long. Levi replied he planned to tame it in one go. Third, Zeno was likely doing something absolutely incredible. He kept going. The guide realized he wasn't just swinging a sword. The guide explained that by destroying the stone, he also restores his body. He said he had cut out the section fused to the magic stone and was gradually restoring the parts freed from its fragments. He knew a careless move could kill Ashton, but if he hesitated, the magic stone would instantly push out the restored piece. A man asked if Ashton had woken yet, and said that even if Ashton died, it would bring relief to everyone, including the world, the people around him, and himself. One group member again asked what the point of all this was. The hero asked whether he had completely lost his mind. He said the man had destroyed himself and could not be punished for everything he had done. So they decided to track those behind it. If he was meant to die, they first needed to find the organizer's location. That, he said, was the first reason. He said the second reason was that the money the man unexpectedly gave him let him save Lily and start his life as a healer. One coin changed his fate. He said there is a third and most important reason he should not be blamed. He said it was because he was a healer. This shook him. At last, he freed himself from the magic stone. He asked if he understood, calling him a fool. The man said he did, and explained how impressive Zeno was. After losing everything, he asked if he should go on living. The hero said he must make that decision himself. Justin admitted he couldn't understand why that person had joined the villains, since they'd always been on their side, and he was suddenly overcome with disgust. All his life he let others manipulate him, and in the end, he became their puppet, which is ironic. Admitting his words were empty, he asked permission to say at least this. Dropped to Zenos' feet, apologizing. Scratching his head, he hinted it was enough to get Ashton to look up, but the boy shouted back that he had not yet apologized. Smiling, he said it was awkward to strike from that position and asked if that was really the case. Boosting his abilities, the hero gained extraordinary power in his fists. Having deliberately saved some magic for moments like this, he asked his opponent to wait. Reno said the final reason he left him alive was that he would not have enjoyed taking revenge while the man was unconscious. Standing up, he saw Krishna, who said she had arrived after a report of a monster attack and that this was their second meeting. She pointed out that he ran away in disgrace last time. Someone asked where Zeno was. The girl said she had met him on the road here and he had told her the whole story. She pointed out it was a real miracle that no one died in such a disaster and that Zeno had saved his life. The boy agreed. The woman said she filed charges against Ashton for attempted assault, escape, perjury, arranging revenge, reckless violence, property damage, and similar offenses that led to his arrest, and that he had been found guilty of indecent assault. She added that Zeno had asked for something to be passed to him, said he had truly lost everything. She noted that the hero asked to pass on one more thing. Holding out a coin, he said it was payment to keep Ashton from contacting him again. The man was stunned. I noted that an Imperial Guard unit had also joined them. That period seemed to be changing. People say that at the center of these changes stands a healer from the deep wilds with a constant, crowded bustle around him. He promised he would not forget Xenos and that they would play together again. The girls gathered around him and lifted him up. The boy wondered what they were planning. Sophia asked why the doctor, who always cares for them, had become so confidently flustered. Linga repeated her question. Levi warned against being tricky. She agreed, saying that sometimes you have to do that. They walked up to the house. She said Camilla was so worried about Synopsa that she ran all over the house, shouting that the girl was acting foolishly. She admitted she was also worried when she learned what had happened, but she was sure he would come back. Welcomed the hero back. When Ashton came to see him, sitting alone in the thicket, he took him into his crew, then later kicked him out. Now he realized he had never belonged there. After all that, he finally found something more. Reno was glad to find he felt at home here. He was at the Imperial Healing Hospital, the Guz Empire's main center for healers, also called the Empire of the Sun. She approached Dr. Becky and asked her to answer one question. The man asked her what the smile meant and what had happened. She hesitated. It is possible that an unqualified healer uses advanced magic. Asking if something was wrong, he said he had expected her to invite him to lunch. She replied that she had already eaten. She admitted she had an odd question and said she was just curious whether it was even possible. Becca asked to give him time to think it over. He said the lack of a license could mean he had no formal education or had failed the exam. The girl agreed, and he added that in that case, he might still have reached a high level. It struck her as truly impressive because people usually earn a license only after long practice, starting as an apprentice, then moving to the beginner level, then to intermediate, and only a few reach the top level, with only those who show exceptional skill and achievements entering a special category. They said a self-taught person reaching that level was remarkable. We agreed it was impressive. He said that if such a person existed, he would be happy to meet them, even though it would cause some difficulties if unauthorized activity were to be stopped. The girl said that was the case. He asked what her real question was, and she was surprised by his reaction. After asking the other healers why headquarters had delayed sending assistance to the Warrens, she said that if anyone there was seriously wounded, help was already too late. One healer replied they could not help because it was just the Warrens. He heard an Imperial Guard unit had detained the suspect, and rumors said they were keeping it quiet to avoid unrest. When they reached the place, they were met with a big surprise. Completely destroyed buildings. He could not believe the monster had really been here, since he had thought it was only a story. The young man asked where the creature that caused the destruction had gone. They decided their first task was to gather all the injured in one place and ask the locals for help. When we learned there were no injuries, we could hardly believe it. We asked everyone, but each person said no one needed a healer. The girl protested sharply that this could not be true, given such eagerness to help. The boy said he had one idea. He noted there were no actual victims, and the residents had staged the whole event to create confusion at headquarters. It occurred to her that destroying their homes to stage it would bring them no benefit. Besides, if any of their relatives had been hurt, they would certainly have asked for help. This thought made her uneasy. We assumed the victims were still there, and that someone else had already healed them all, perhaps a healer with top-level magic. And she remembered mentioning an unlicensed healer, but could not figure out who could have predicted it. She insisted it could not be. The girl felt she was talking nonsense and hesitated about continuing. Someone asked what she was thinking. Something could have distracted her from her thoughts. Looking at her, he said he planned to go home and asked if she wanted to come along. She said she had recently gone to get takeout. Lucas said visiting patients at home and helping in medically underserved areas is also important work at the Imperial Hospital. He asked whether that case had affected her. She replied that maybe it had. The doctor reassured her he understood, but warned that too much worry could harm her health, and that would be very undesirable. He showed an envelope and said he had something else, a request for a home visit. After handing over the envelope, he said, "This place is recommended for anyone feeling tired. People looking to recover always gather here." The girl was surprised they came in whole groups. She thought a crowded place might help her find the person she was looking for. She told Zenos that in the end, they never found the organizer of that golem incident. Only that he called himself the Mentor was known. As he remembered, the guide belonged to an underground guild that took any job as needed, and the hero vowed to remember his name and repay him in the future. The girl agreed, but pointed out there was one more detail. She said that when she went to the secret hideout Ashton had pointed out, there was no one there, and no trace of him. He remarked that she liked poking into other people's business and kept quiet about herself. She replied that talking about herself was boring, and other people's dramatic stories were a better snack with a drink. Fias said she also tried to learn more about the guide. She said that when she asked her younger brother to find out more about the secret guild, he discovered the guide had arrived there only recently, and people said he was an outsider who had no contact with the guild members. She said she had tried to find out too, but heard the same things. If I said the afterlife has its own immune system, she believed interrogation could only produce limited results. At the scene, the Imperial Guard also searched for the guide, treating him as a dangerous criminal. After covering his tracks, he vanished into the underground. Sophia said sooner or later he would show up and she would track him, Linga agreed, saying he was clearly planning something, and Levi added that he was a difficult opponent to catch and might be hiding in his secret hideout. He spoke to them, calling them bandits, and urged them to stop speculating, stating a clear opinion. Sophia grew angry and asked if the assumption was hers. Krishna replied no and said it was based on the investigation and the searches. Znaings asked them to calm down. He suggested they stop shouting while they stood in different corners. To express it, she asked why he was here at all. When Hina pointed out that preparing a report for the stakeholders was a great idea, she asked which of them was wasting Mr. Zeno's valuable time. Lizardman said it was empty talk, and Krishna asked whether they needed to prove that this was not so. Zero, seeing them off, said there was no point in arguing because he was tired today, so it was time for everyone to head home. She recalled something about Ashton and noted that no one else in any interview had mentioned Z by name. She noticed that Sinos's achievements kept growing, and he said he did not like standing out and did not want all those awards and recognition, saying that being paid for his work was enough. The woman said she had expected that answer and promised to tell him as soon as they found the semiconductor. She served the hero tea and offered some treats. He thanked her. She turned to him and said she'd had an idea. The hero asked what it was. It might have been a thought about how hard the last battle with the golem had been for him. He said he hadn't felt this exhausted in a long time. He suggested they go out together to relax and rest a bit. The girl felt so embarrassed she could only say the first letter. Lily said angrily that they would go together, but he didn't like it. Embarrassed, she managed to say what she and the other woman had meant. Suddenly, Zofia appeared, loudly calling for the doctor. Later, Zofia asked what had happened and whether she had forgotten anything. The girl said she actually had a small proposal and had been waiting for Linga and Levi to leave. Zofia asked whether the last fight with the golem had been hard for him. The hero admitted he had not felt that tired in a long time. Zofia said that was why she had the proposal. Shouldn't they visit Anson? He said it was a spacious pool with warm water that would take away all the tiredness. Zenos agreed it was a great idea. The girl brightened and reminded him he had made a promise. Linga entered. The hero asked if anything had happened or if she had forgotten something. She said she actually had a small proposal. She suggested going to Anson's and said a warm bath together would make him feel tired. He agreed, and Linga cheerfully reminded him that he had already promised. Hansen sensed that his confirmation would be correct. Surprised, he asked how the other had guessed and said their thoughts matched exactly. The hero noted that the girls really think alike. Krishna suddenly appeared and said she had a proposal. Zenos was surprised she had an idea too. After she said goodbye to her, he wondered if she had been singing with them and why everyone was so taken with the onsen. Then he asked Lily what she meant. Build up irritation like sprinkling powder. Turning away, she said loudly that it didn't matter anymore. The hero looked embarrassed. Leaving, one of the characters said she had not been to Anson in a long time, and the hero wondered whether she wanted to go back. The resort town of Frem, just half a day's carriage ride from the royal capital, is famous for its healing mud and springs. While soaking in a spring, Kizinos felt it was a true blessing. Realizing his visit was well-timed, the hero turned when someone addressed him. Sophia suddenly appeared before him. He realized it was the men's section. The girl offered to rub his back, saying the trip was pleasant. The hero told her to return to the women's section before a fuss began. The lizard chief reassured them she had just hung a cleaning sign, so the place was fully at their disposal. Approaching the doctor, she said they were the only two here. She said she believed it had all happened because she met him. She added that he not only healed wounds, but changed a person. Convinced, she thought the world would change with him. The hero only replied that this was an exaggeration. She felt she was getting closer to something important, and when he shouted that he was engulfed in flames, she had to be careful enough to sneak up and catch him off guard. Linga appeared on the horizon and shouted to Zofia to stop, because she believed cheating was wrong. Fear seized her. People shouted, asking what was happening with the men and what they were doing. Lissaman replied that he was doing nothing and asked what Tar herself was doing. Linga announced loudly that she was going to swim and jumped into the pond. The hero asked if she was joking. Sophia snapped at Linga not to come to the dock so carelessly. Linga said she was just dizzy, and Sophia said sarcastically that someone with that kind of stamina should not get dizzy. She shouted for them to stop and asked if they had already forgotten her. Laughing loudly, she said she had hidden in the water waiting for Zenos but fainted, and their commotion brought her back. The hero asked if she had overdone it. He praised her style as wonderful. Zofia loudly objected, saying that was not true. Linga insisted she was the one who looked elegant. The doctor admitted he would rather stay silent. "Krishna, the men are already here," she called out. This shows it meant nothing to Sophia, and she would not have dared to approach the hero so shamelessly. He shouted back that one more obstacle would not be a problem. She shouted that she would never back down and that Adzenos would scorch her with a look like fire. Her thoughts burned with anger after the argument. He loudly ordered everyone to move immediately to the women's side. She said she had chosen a roadside yard where almost no one was around, so it would be unfortunate if suspicious people showed up there. It seemed impossible to her that the mysterious, unusually gifted healer could be hiding in the dark. Clan chiefs and Krishna. Sophia shouted that the Krishnas should not give her orders. Linga suggested that Sophia might feel ashamed. Levi smiled and said Sophia probably wanted to show off her naked body more. The woman was shocked and thought these people were real hooligans. It seemed unusual to see representatives of different species together, and Sophia noticed her and asked if she needed anything, but the girl said she did not need anything. Watching the girls walk away, I listened to their conversation, and suddenly one of them said it had worked in their favor, leaving me stunned and looking around. A lily rose from the water. The girl thought how beautiful the elf was, and that if she had that figure, she would also become a masculine woman. She was surprised. Camilla reassured Lily that there was no reason to worry, and that Lily would still have time to grow up. She noted that a bigger size is not always more attractive. The girl interrupted. Ray pointed out that there are things children still cannot understand. He told her that today her body had become even more transparent. Camilla examined herself closely. She asked the merciful Buddha whether that meant she was rising to heaven. Noting she was disappearing, Lily ran after her in fear, calling loudly, "We will turn to them and ask if something happened." Looking at Camilla, the girl asked if it was Raz, then fearfully drew a magic circle and asked why there were so many high-level undead here. The ghost said she would disappear for a day and then soared into the sky. They shouted at her not to do it. Linga asked Zeno, "Why not?" Surprised, Varman looked at the bandits and noticed how calm they were, as if nothing had happened. A girl sat alone at the next table. The other girls said she had been staring at them for a long time, and it made them feel a rising tide of hatred. Zeno turned to her, said there was no need to make that face, and invited her to join him. The girls said angrily that they never would, and that no member of the Imperial Guard who stands guard to keep order would raise a glass to the underworld leaders. Curious where Camilla was, Lily said she had heard Camilla planned to drink alone in her room. The hero paused. Walking, she murmured that the dish had been so delicious she could not help eating too much, adding that next time she would return to the restaurant with her friends and healers. But just before the door opened, something stopped her. An odd feeling nagged her. Thinking it was just tiredness, she went straight to bed, and when she opened the door, she was stunned. Dull thuds sounded. We looked at each other, then hurried to the other door and grabbed the handle. She was there, hunched over, and said the alcohol was starting to take effect. Emil said she had entered the wrong room and walked through the wall. He realized what that meant, but was surprised it wasn't true. Turning, Lillian said over his shoulder that they were here again. He asked Camilla if anything had happened in the next room. She said she did not know. Maybe he imagined it. Lily lay down and then returned to the living room. Sitting on the sofa, he admitted he felt tired. She asked if it had been fun at the bank. He said it had, but only until halfway. She still wanted to drink next to Mr. Zenos. He said they had a contest where whoever drank the most got to sit on the winner's lap. Camille assured him the banquet was in his honor, so he should enjoy the celebration. She said she was a spirit who could possess objects close to her heart, and by day she lived in the stick Lily took with her. When asked if the stick represented her, Camilla said it did. He offered him a drink, calling him a poor soul who suffers from too much attention from women. He lifted his cup, and the girl filled it generously. Upon entering the room, she saw a woman trying to wake a man. She asked if the woman was okay and what had happened. The woman said her husband usually cooked, and when she went into the kitchen, she heard a loud crack. The girl was frightened. She cried out that he must be taken to a healer. The other woman said she was the healer. The first woman was greatly surprised and begged for help. She said she would try something and create a magic circle. She asked how he felt. Vomine promised she would save him. While the magic held the pain and stopped the damage from spreading, she thought it made sense to move the man to the city's healing center. His fingers were badly burned, so full recovery could be difficult, and he probably won't be able to hold a kitchen knife. I hesitated over how to tell her about it when someone asked what had happened. Zenos thought he heard an explosion and went to find out what happened. The last thing that came to mind was that it was a burn from a magical firestone. Vomen said she wanted to take him to the Imperial healing center in the city so they could heal him with advanced magical sigils. The hero was surprised such a place existed and said it sounded pretty exciting. There was no need for that. The girl was surprised. He ran up and asked what had happened. Zenos said there had been a small fire, but it was under control. It was time to leave, and they were already on their way, and he made it clear he didn't want to miss the chance. He shouted for him to stop and asked where he was going. He turned, looked at his perfectly healthy hand, and could not hide his amazement. Delighted, the woman began thanking the other women, yet she remained puzzled. She could not understand how he had managed to heal such burns in an instant without using a magic circle. It seemed only the highest healers blessed with holy power could do that. She ran into the corridor and then out into the street. A carriage stood by the door. The girl realized this time it was definitely not a dream. In the end, it became clear that this country did have a mysterious healer of the highest order hiding in the dark. He told Becca what happened. She remembered seeing Reese relaxing with a bottle of sake while gang members from different clans talked peacefully, and the doctor said he was glad she had the chance to rest but was still bothered by something. He couldn't believe the miraculous healer who instantly cured a serious burn. The girl insisted it was true and asked whether they would supervise him if he worked without a license. Becca said they probably would. There are only about 10 healers of that level in the entire country, and they are extremely valuable specialists, so the state clearly wants to keep them under control. After Lily asked, she said his name was likely Zenos and found no such name in the registry of healers. Dr. Ashton asked whether she remembered anything else. The girl said there was little time left. She noted that nothing could be done because he did not seem like a bad person, so leaving him alone would not hurt anything. If the manager finds out, they will surely issue a reprimand. Then she remembered something important. The healer wore a black cloak. The doctor's expression changed, and he asked again if the man in a black cloak was really a top healer. The girl asked if everything was all right. The doctor said he had changed his mind. He said he would really like to meet him, one of the best healers. He told the hero his stomach hurt that morning. The hero said he also had a fever, so he asked Lily to put him to bed. Lily agreed and did as he asked. People who use the scanner. He noticed inflammation in Sandy's stomach and asked if she had eaten something bad. The man said yesterday's meat had a strange taste. The protagonist said that could be food poisoning. It will start by easing pain and strengthening the body's defenses. He said an IV should be started to prevent dehydration, but there is no suitable water here. He reassured that once the patient feels better, he will be able to drink on his own, and the man agreed. Feeling much better, he sincerely thanked the doctor. The medic advised him to save his strength. Lily was surprised that the hero could also heal illnesses. The hero replied that it depends on the type of ailment. Removing the affected area is simple, he noted. If the disease has spread through the whole body, the only thing he can do is strengthen the body's resistance. Thanos noted that using it with medication proved more effective, but without a license, he could not buy the medicine. The medicine had already been developed and saved many lives, and he realized how remarkable medicines can be. The girl listened with interest. Xenos asked what had happened as they entered the house. Sophia insisted it was not the time to rest. "I'm sorry, but I can't help with this request." She said that, in her view, Mr. Zeno's treatment methods were truly unique, and that is why he was recognized. He asked what to do. The hero hesitated for a moment. Then he asked who was looking for him. The doctor shouted that he was not the one they expected from Ancina Paflam. It was unclear how he had found out the man was from the Imperial hospital, and Levi said it probably was not worth worrying too much. She said all the slum residents are grateful to him, and that, in her view, no one will dare to speak up, adding that Imperial K will cause less chaos than the conductor. She thought that if they kept ignoring her, it might all work itself out. Xenos hesitated. They said they'd have to wait a bit, and then we'll see. He told Beck it was pointless. She spends her days in the slums, but whoever she asks says they haven't heard of him. Why did they limit their search to just this area? They said that if the healer ran a secret operation in the city center, people would have known about him long ago. People said that if a monster incident left no one hurt, that proved it had strong ties to the slums. They asked the woman how long she'd been wandering the thickets, and she said 10 days, after which Becca told them to stop asking because she had a lot of other work and didn't need to try so hard, adding that she couldn't just drop everything. He suggested asking management for help. The doctor said their data were unfortunately incomplete for the report. Will reacted with surprise and said they really planned to leave everything half done, and the doctor confirmed it. She noticed the girl from the shelter had stopped coming. He said that was good. A robot with someone on its shoulder reported the person was seriously ill, asked whether the man was really lying in the middle of the street. The lizard confirmed it and said the man was coughing blood. So he went to take him to Xenos. Lily noted that leaving him there could have caused an epidemic. The heroes agreed that Sandy did the right thing. They put the patient on the bed, and the doctor began scanning. That the boy's lungs were severely affected, especially in the upper parts. Fear suddenly gripped him. He told the others to step back. Lily asked what happened. The hero said it was unbelievable. He stood up suddenly and, saying it was incredible, stressed the remarkable diagnostic skills. He said that if after 10 days not even a rumor appears, then either the person does not exist or everyone is hiding him. If the latter, everyone in the slums trusts that person. The young man approached the mysterious healer from the ruins and asked permission to say his name. He introduced himself as Becky, a healer of the highest rank at the Imperial Healing Hospital. He said healing magic was not really his specialty. Zeno was surprised to learn the man was a top-class healer. Curious about the large power cost, he asked. The doctor began to explain, but someone called to him. Vermine stood in the doorway. The hero called out that she was the same girl from the Inn by Flame. She also said this was the healer and that he was here. The girl turned to her and said he was only pretending to be seriously ill, that he was being treated, and she had to follow him because it was extremely important. And he replied that if he had not taken such a step, everything would have been in vain. Not only did he start coughing up blood, which terrified both Lily and me, it was disappointing because the effect should have been weaker but felt stronger. Zeno looked at him. Dr. Becky asked him how he had ended up in that situation. He said it was simple. Pulling out a glass, He explained that to play a seriously ill man, he had drunk a special drink that caused tuberculosis-like symptoms, and the substance broke down quickly in his body with no harmful effects, so it was not life-threatening. He added that he had already taken an antidote and was fine, and the hero asked where the man had gotten the drink. Leonard smiled and said he had made the drink himself because he once developed a cure for tuberculosis, which surprised Zeno, but Vuman confirmed it was true. Enthusiastically, he told him that Dr. Becker had developed medicines not only for tuberculosis, but also for whooping cough and scarlet fever, that her achievements had won her a promotion and made her an exceptional person, and Taff, a little embarrassed, said he would support her and that there was nothing wrong with it. They said it was time to get down to business, and it seemed there was no medical license. Sandy grew nervous. He apologized to the hero, admitting it was his fault, and vowed to do everything necessary to delay the enemy and let them escape. Lily shouted that they would not leave Xenos because everyone was counting on him. Someone suggested asking him for help with this matter. The doctor replied that it was an internal issue that did not concern him. The woman pointed out that this is why it is sometimes easier to act from the outside. She noted that when the man suddenly said he would look for him, the same thought occurred to her. When Becca heard about the healer in the black cloak, she thought of an old acquaintance, but later learned it was not him. Only the coat hanger caught his attention. Bernard asked Zeno if the cloak belonged to him, and Zeno said yes, but that it had belonged to his mentor before. The doctor asked the mentor's name. Zeno said he did not know, because the mentor never mentioned his name, and then Becca said she had changed her mind. They said they would assign the case to him. Voman asked whether he was certain. Dr. Becker asked Xenos to visit the Imperial hospital. The hero was confused. He tried to figure out if they really wanted him to go to the Imperial treatment center. He admitted he needed his help for this matter, adding that an outsider with healing magic would be best for the job. The hero hesitated for a moment. Then someone called him. Something appeared in the house, and Sophia called out to him not to listen to what they were trying to put into his head. The doctor, introducing himself as Becker from the Imperial hospital, said he was pleased to meet Zeno. He offered Zeno a deal, promising in return to ignore his secret dealings. Zeno asked what guarantee there was that the promise would be kept. Levi shouted that they could not trust someone who served the government. Looking out the window, Levi turned to the doctor and shouted. The Institute of Armed Inhumans surrounded the building. Terrified, he listened as Becker said the hero had supported the slum residents. It was hard for him to believe they had backed him so strongly that different tribes united to protect him. He realized this had probably never happened before, apologized for his unacceptably rude behavior, admitting he was at fault. Xenos asked if the other person could make a clean request. He added that he was ready to discuss the terms and pay fairly. Agreed. Sophia called him and asked if he was sure. The heroes said they were eager to see the Imperial healing facility because they now had something to offer for silence about their secret activities. He added that Becca had deliberately pretended to be very sick, although she could have easily picked another victim and poisoned her. They noted that the fact the doctor did not do it spoke in his favor. Ernord said he felt the need to forgive himself. Zeno added that during the tuberculosis epidemic, medicines were given free in the slums, saving many lives. If Becca really did it, the woman said many people opposed the initiative, but the doctor personally handed out medicine in the slums. The protagonist said this was only part of the story. Beck held out his hand, welcomed the hero to the Imperial Hospital. He saw the Imperial Hospital as a center of healing in the administrative area of the aristocrats' privileged quarter and found it impressive. The area is large, so it's easy to get lost here. He suggested they go to his lab first. They walked down the corridor. They went upstairs and entered through one of the doors. The room held many books. The hero found it calming. Ernaud warned against telling a stranger the room was a hermit's refuge. Zeno asked whether this was really an investigation into a person's disappearance. Brought up the disappearance of one of Dr. Beck's lab employees. He reported that the man did not return home, and although they contacted the administration, it did not take the matter seriously. Ernaud said they could not involve the Imperial Guard because the circumstances of the incident were unclear. Agreeing, he noted that finding people was not their specialty, and the doctor said they were stuck with no option but to ask him to gather information for them. He observed that sometimes it is easier to get around as an outsider if you show your badge, and added that students who finish the special course can take part in the Imperial Medical Hospital's educational program with a recommendation. Doctors said patients come to them from different departments, which will make it easier to collect the necessary information. Zenos asked whether any questions might arise about him. Doctors assured that there is no need to worry about it. He died while revealing a new form of the hero, now called Zenos, who had recently returned from abroad. The man said identity checks are usually done, but his position lets him do only a quick check. Zenos wondered whether that meant Ernaud would take responsibility if he did something wrong. She said the program's classes start tomorrow, and for now, he can move into the dorm, and she will take care of him. She welcomed him back when she met him there. He asked why she was here. One of those present said Dr. Becker told her she was allowed to live here with her husband, or closest relatives. Jairus explained it was because Lily was engaged to Zeno. Another person replied that was not true, saying Lily was registered as his younger sister. She pouted. Daryl suggested it would be safer if it involved someone they knew and promised they'd take care of everything. The hero thanked her. "See you tomorrow," the girl said, and left the room. Addressed Zenos as dear. He asked whether she had ruined anything, since he thought her a coward. The girl only sighed again. Then he wanted to know who had taught her that trick. Neil said it was from her. The hero was stunned by her sudden appearance and demanded to know why she was there. Startled, he asked why she was here, and she said it was obvious. She had simply felt provoked, so he asked whether it could have been any different. Neil noted that someone with his healing ability does not appear every day. Zeno asked again whether she had said anything. Ray replied that she had not said anything. He sat alone at the table. Jean approached him and asked how the orientation went. He said there was a lot of work ahead, and he had no idea how to become a regular healer. She said she understood. She explained how the licensing system works, starting with passing the required exams at the Healers Training Center and then completing several years of training, during which you must pass a Healer's Qualification exam to obtain a license. We noted there were several options: work in the Imperial Healing Department, gain experience, and start your own practice, qualify as an adventurer, become a military healer, or treat only royal families and the nobility. Thanos asked whether the Imperial physician was responsible for all of them. Voman replied that people come here to do research and teach, to study advanced treatment methods, and to help develop and run these institutions. The hero admitted he felt dizzy from Aldous' tricks, as if he saw rings before his eyes. For now, talk about the absent employee. The woman agreed, noting his name was Alfred and that he was her senior colleague. He said Alfred was wonderful in every way: intelligent, kind, and caring. One person recalled Dr. Becker telling her he had made a significant contribution to developing tuberculosis drugs and hopes to become a senior doctor someday. Reno said the person was worth searching for, but that following her aimlessly would not help, so he asked if there were any clues, and the girl answered that there were. You'll notice some familiar faces. People wore the Imperial healers' uniforms and a man with a serious expression walked at the front. When asked who it was, the girl said it was Professor Goldrin, Deputy Director of the Imperial Healing Hospital and a senior 7th level healer. The hero asked again about the 7th level. We will explain that there were 3 main healer levels, each divided into 7 stages, and he held the highest level among them. People said he was a well-known, influential figure. She noted the current director is elderly and often on leave, so real power lies with the professor. She noted that since he became deputy director, the Imperial Hospital has changed. It now welcomes wealthy patients, but openly discriminates against the rest. He said rumors were spreading that he had won the 7th class with the support of the high nobility. He stressed it was better to avoid someone like that to prevent trouble. The girl said they should instead draw his attention. The hero was very surprised. She said Professor Goldrin may be involved in Alfred's disappearance. She explained he was gathering talented assistants and had invited Alfred to work in his laboratory. The protagonist asked if Becca had given her approval. Her answer was that it seemed he owed him money for covering expenses and could not refuse. It was noted that Alfred disappeared a month after the move. She said that no matter how many times she asked Professor Gorman, he always said he did not know. They still suspected foul play. Zeno said he understood where she was going, but asked how to approach him. She assured him it would not be difficult. He suggests that appearing on the show would make him discover himself. The hero wondered whether that would be harder than a divorce. The girl asked if he understood his own level. He felt embarrassed. Ask Amin what she was doing in the corner. Turning to him, she called him Crescent. Ro replied that she could eat anywhere. Tov asked her not to be angry, explained he had come to thank her for staying with their golden group, and asked whether the hero had been a student in a special course. She told him to do whatever it took so the person who recommended him would not be embarrassed. Zeno asked who he was. Vermina said he was her classmate. When he joined Professor Goldrin, he immediately began showing off. She said he had left. The girl agreed and added that if he behaves as usual, everything will be fine. The lecturer announced the start of the lecture. Reno thought the course would start with a lecture for servants, and the instructor said his specialty is healing adventurers, so today he will cover the undead and share the latest news about the creatures that wander the world after death. He noted that the undead include zombies, vampires, and ghosts. Today, he will explain their traits and the effective magic to heal them. The teacher turned to the students and asked if anyone knew how to deal with a runny nose. Chrisen Wembley raised his hand, introduced himself, and said he works in Goldrin's lab. He noted that over several years he went on adventures and easily defeated 30 ghosts, which greatly surprised the other students. Let's recall the training from the special course, he said, glancing at Xenos, who was clearly surprised. He said he could beat almost 50 opponents at once. Crescent cut in, surprised. The instructor asked the hero to explain his claim in more detail. Zeno said there was nothing to explain. The underground labyrinth was full of ghosts, and a healing spell could be used on all of them at once. They asked him if it was Galmanton's labyrinth, and he said that is what people call it. Batter noted that even a gold-class squad found it extremely difficult to get into this labyrinth, adding that only a few squads managed to retrieve the treasures safely and that his words may sound exaggerated. He said he had even returned with 7 treasures. The teacher was impressed, couldn't figure out what the problem was. Turning to him, he told him not to speak nonsense just for attention and asked what the other 50 ghosts were doing at the same time. He said that once they finished the practical program, they would see for themselves how good a professional he is, and added that they should watch their words. The hero replied he would keep that in mind. The next teacher drew a magic circle on the board. He specializes in healing circles, which are magical geometric patterns drawn with magic and whose effectiveness depends on their shape, and added a few details to the circle. Now felt discouraged because he had little knowledge of magic circles. The teacher asked which student wanted to try drawing one. Chrisen raised his hand and asked for permission to try. Going up, he quickly drew a circle on the board. The teacher praised how well he did it in such a short time, with almost nothing to correct, and asked the others to pause. Jason pointed to Xenos and said the special course intern seemed to want a turn too. The protagonist meant to refuse, but had to step up to the board. The teacher urged him not to be shy and to use the chance to learn. Crescent added that a bit of embarrassment would not hurt. The hero picked up the chalk and paused to think. He said it was basically a helpful extra worth knowing because it could come in handy, and promised to show what he had come up with in his free time. He explained that the magic circle will not work if drawn without enough magical energy, but believes Zeno's power should be enough. The hero decided it would be a great way to have fun, and this is what he came up with. On the board, he drew a large, finely detailed, beautiful magic circle. Smirking with irony, he asked what the hell that was. The teacher reacted with surprise at the magic circle. This is not just about how it appeared in a normal magic circle. The infinite spiral's amplification effect sits at the world's edge and may not be true regeneration. Xenos noted that if more than one finger is lost, the object restores one of them. The instructor asked in surprise if that is theoretically possible. The magical power's potential was enormous, and people could not control it. The hero declared he could handle it. The instructor gasped in surprise, said he felt waves of magical energy, and asked who Xenos was. When the instructor asked if Xenos could come to his lab, Crescenta was very upset. He is not someone who should think so highly of himself. Someone approached Goldran and said he had something to report, and they asked him what it was. A boy told a rumor about a healing mage who had defeated 50 ghosts at once. The professor asked whether it was true. The young man said he had personally passed on the information. Gordon asked whether the healer had called himself that. The youth added that the mage not only announced his powers, but had created a magic circle even Professor Fazo's assistant had never seen. The professor asked him at least what his name was. He replied that he was a specially trained Xenos. The professor asked again. A young woman reported many zombies at the cemetery. She said there were too many zombies to handle without outside help. Golven told her to send someone and not to distract him with minor issues from Nava. Agreeing, she was about to leave when the professor spoke to her. I heard about a student who managed to destroy 50 ghosts at once. If that's true, the professor said it might be worth admitting him. I tried to ask if Xenos planned to go kill zombies. Someone replied that it looked that way. Camilla said it was a problem. The hero said it was no big deal to him. The girl reminded him they were talking about zombies. Reports said zombies were gathering at the cemetery, which was unusual. Camilla paused to think. It was no use thinking on an empty stomach, so he offered the hero something to eat. The man asked if Lily had cooked it. After tasting it, he said the dish was delicious. Bella asked for more chicken and warned that if Lily added carrot, she would curse her forever. And Lily, hearing this, said it sounded scary, while Zeno noted that Camilla, however, can eat solid food. She wanted to ask Zeno if he was going anywhere. The hero explained he had been told the bosses had already decided. The girl faltered, but admitted she understood. She said it seemed as if golden runners were watching him, and Zeno asked if that was true, adding that he had not done anything noticeable, while the woman replied that he really stood out. He tried to stay ordinary. He shouted that they were leaving. He told everyone he had come from Goldran's lab and would now take charge. Looking around, he said, "There they are." Ghosts and zombies confronted them. The young man looked determined. He shouted for everyone to attack and run after him. A call to hurry is heard. Zeno agreed. The doctors were surrounded by ghosts. They use magic circles to attack the undead. He watched them and noted they were killing these creatures alone or in pairs, moving cautiously. Will replied quietly that it might only seem that way. He thought the problem was far more serious. One of the healers was in contact with a ghost. Someone on the team warned that if the ghost touched anyone, it would drain all their life force. Another turned to the leader and asked him to act. Cress agreed. The dealers formed a circle, standing back to back. Crescent called out that there was no point in killing them one by one, and told everyone to hold still. The undead were already very close. The cramped space didn't help them get out. Zeno began to use magic. The undead were defeated, shocking the healers. The hero said he had arrived just in time, and because all the enemies were frozen, they were easier to deal with. Monsters reached the healers, but Zeno attacked them all. She had simply told him to act as usual and did not expect it to turn out this way. Crescent was stunned and then began to laugh. He asked everyone if they'd seen it, saying it was nothing to him. Vormain was puzzled. The expert said the special ward could not do that. She asked how that matched reality. The hero confirmed it, though he still seemed to be using magic as usual. The lesson warned it would be unpleasant if someone else took all its credit, and urged us to tell the higher-ups at once, and we were very angry. He wondered why he'd been ordered to keep an eye on this recruit. Hearing that, Xenos asked what keep an eye on meant. He said frankly there was no place for him here. The hero ordered everyone to stop because they had not yet dealt with the zombies. Crescent stared ahead. Monuments, grass, and fog came into view. Sir Galb towered over the healers. Zeno said Sir Galb was a zombie king. Lesson could not figure out where the monster came from, and he shouted that they could not handle it alone and should call for help from those upstairs. The others agreed, but asked if they could hold him while they called for backup. The man hesitated. One healer, who called himself the leader, asked if he could stop the zombies with healing magic like he had recently. A woman raised her voice to remind him that, as part of the Goldran Research Center elite, the same actions were expected of him. He just stood there, confused and unsure what to do next. Worried, he looked at Zeno, then Tot asked if Crescent wanted to tell him to stay away. Nervously, he addressed the healers, urging them to call for help immediately and promising to stop the zombies. They shouted that they believed in him and relied on him. Terrified, he tried to steel himself for the possible consequences, knowing it was his fault. The highest hill made a hole through the zombie. The zombie felt joy. Laughing, he asked the others if they'd seen how his magic had made it work. When he turned back, the hole in the zombie's belly had closed. The young man could not believe it. He swung at him, and the other man barely jumped aside to avoid the blow. The zombie's bony hand began to grip the ground. It swung its fist at Crescent. Crescent dodged the zombie's strike and laughed. He wondered if anyone had noticed, and taunted the zombie that it would not even touch him. Vermain said they were just running around the monster because they were the only ones left here. Zeno said this meant the zombie king was guilty. He asked why Vermain had acted so passively toward the zombies when Vermain claimed he could defeat them all at once. Vermain said the man had lied. Zeno was very surprised and asked again whether that was true. He said he did not need help and that it was better to let him get what he deserved, and the hero only smiled. He voiced concern for him. The girl said she expected that because he had not rushed to call for help. Their joint efforts, she said, would at least make it possible to find his bones. The hero told her she was very kind, but she pointed out that there was one problem. They said the longer the zombie king lived, the more rotting flesh fused to him, making him stronger. Crescent saw that simply buying time would not be enough. Then the monster landed a punch on him. Crescent flew backward and hit the ground with a dull thud. A cry of pain escaped him, but gathering his strength, he quickly rose, using the hill to steady himself. He said he had been distracted and asked if it was over. Meanwhile, a zombie had crept too close to him. Attacking again, the healer knocked him backward and took another hit from above. His condition became critical, and he could not get fully to his feet. Meanwhile, the monster began pulling his arm toward itself. He grabbed the man with his hand, while the man shouted at the top of his voice and begged to be let go. He felt unfairly wronged. Crescent did not know what to do in that situation. He moved closer to the zombie until he was almost at its mouth, then raised his voice and called for help. Use magic. He aimed his hands at the monster and used a huge hill. The monster started to dissolve with a piercing scream, and finally, only bones lay on the ground. She raised the battered Crescent. After being reluctantly asked for help, the girl said he should try to save himself because he was close to tears, and the boy shouted at her to be quiet, covering his ears with his hands. He knows how to apologize to him. Realizing that zombies attract stronger ones, he concluded there must be a higher-tier zombie here. When Zenos returned, Camille sneezed loudly. Lily asked if she was all right. She wondered if this was also her fault. She said she had long noticed a royal procession, or something like a spill, and urged people to lie down immediately. When asked if they wanted to drive her out, Zeno said that was not their intention because they had to think about the general's safety. Staying with him might have been better for her. Lily was very surprised. She spoke up, saying she had something to say, and added that Zenos seeks to be near those he hates, which makes him truly eccentric. She agreed and said she would relax a bit then. She asked what would happen to Zeno's work now. He said it would get even harder. He had no notable achievements. He said his name was Gord, and that he was the one who recommended the boy to the teacher. Given that, the special student seems not to have met the expectations placed on him. Ford admitted he had accidentally introduced the teacher to another person and called it a mistake. Crescent paused to think. Gathering his thoughts, he clenched his fist and prepared to speak. He said he could handle it, and he liked that the special offer was also pretty good. The man said the horde of zombies, including the Zombie King, had actually been defeated by Zenos. God asked what he meant by that. Crescent confirmed it was true and said he had witnessed everything that happened. He apologized and ran out of the office. God lingered in thought. Standing in the doorway, he thought he had finally repaid that special intern. Worried he had done something wrong, the hero asked. Ernord reassured him that everything was fine and invited him to join the group. The woman reacted with surprise and joy. Becca noted that killing the zombies seemed to draw the attention of Goldrin's aides. Reno said everyone likely assumed Crescent did it. He admitted he did not know the details, but said the accused hero is real. He noticed that teacher Goldrin had many secretaries, and probably one of them recommended Zenos. He asked what it meant. Erdogan said sadly that they still had to interview the teacher himself. The protagonist felt disappointed. The man noted that the professor is particularly strict about posture and appearance. People say he has healing abilities, but his magical energy is not very strong. He highlighted the professor's political activity and fundraising methods, noting rumors that he secured his position through large donations and the support of 7 noble families he was closely tied to. He noted that although the High Healer and Astit held special healing posts, they did not outrank Golden. Dr. Becker replied that unfortunately, political rights and ranks cannot be compared. Upon being summoned, the hero agreed immediately. Erden wished him success. They noted that Zenos would likely be fine. Dr. Becker agreed. No need to worry about his skills, but Ms. Goldrin tends to be suspicious of people, which is a flaw. Eru asked whether this man might suspect the hero. The man advised preparing to flee if the hero gets into trouble. The woman said such things are no laughing matter. Erdin admitted he had bet on Xenos. He hinted that the girl trusts him,